What's going on, everybody? Happy Saturday night. We're back. Another Saturday night, another weekend, another conversation about George A. Romero. And tonight, we're going to be covering a little Day of the Dead. And with me, I have a very special guest here. Joined me on a stream probably, 5 or 6 months ago for remaking Romero. I figure I made him sit through all the terrible remakes of Romero, including the Day of the Dead remake. So I figured I'd bring him on tonight and we can talk about, the real deal, the actual thing, the real darkest day of horror the world has ever known. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. John Grande of Grande's Graveyard. What's up, man?
Alpha, welcome. Thank you for having me, man. I appreciate you having me on the show. I appreciate not having to watch the Day of the Dead remake again. That was terrible. But hey, man, I'm super excited tonight to talk all things the darkest day in horror the world has ever known. And in my opinion, George's last truly great movie. I know he made other movies after that I like, but I don't know if he ever made anything up to this par again. I would say it's Savini's magnum opus. And I don't know. I'm just very excited to be on the show tonight talking all things Day of the Dead, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man, thanks for coming on. It's Day of the Dead's always kind of been a weird because I agree it is kind of George's last great film. It was kind of the end of an era for that crew, Michael Gornick and Rubenstein and and then of course George would go on to do other stuff in Pittsburgh, and there were some people that stuck around, Barbara Anderson, Cletus Anderson, Dubinsky still worked on some, but just that core, group of guys that worked with George for all those years. This was kind of just where they split ways. George left Laurel, and Laurel went on to focus more on the Tales from Dark Side TV series with Gornick kind of going away with Rubenstein. And so Day of the Dead's always been an interesting one for me, just in that aspect. It felt like the end of that timeline for George, like from when he first met Richard Rubenstein to Day of the Dead. Then it was just kind of a completely different thing after that.
Yeah, it was just totally the swan song for all that. And I think, in a nice way, I love it. I think it's a nice bookend. Now, I will say this. I see people in the chat saying this. That intro, if you put that together, that was incredible, man. What an incredible intro that was. That was like, if they had released that as the trailer to the, I feel like it would not have bombed domestically as bad as it did. So,
yeah, we'll definitely talk about, the reception of Day of the Dead and whatnot. But yeah, that intro was cool. That intro was put together by a couple of videos I found on YouTube. So I can't take full credit for it, but just kind of the structure of it,
Yeah, no, that was awesome. That was an awesome way to kick this off.
And that was I don't know if you've heard that song before. It's Gorillaz, the band Gorillaz.
Yeah,
I remember the song's called M1A1. Have you heard it before that?
I have heard it before that. I didn't realize it was the Gorillaz though. I know they do like Clint Eastwood and Feel Good. They do that song.
Yeah.
So they're a good band, man.
Yeah, I remember hearing that song for the first time. I was at a party and we were drinking. I think we were playing cards or something like that, and somebody had, they were just playing whatever in the background, and that started coming on. I started hearing, "Hello, is anyone there?" And I was just like, am I fucking freaking out right now? Am I hearing this correctly? I'm like,
am I in Florida?
I was like, who the fuck is playing John Harrison in here? This is the party that I belong, but yeah, so I've always wanted to use that for something, so it's cool. I'm gonna have to, of course, cut it out after the fact to avoid copyright issues.
I had that with the Addams Family. I'm like, they won't get me for 30 seconds of snapping. And they were like, the minute it uploaded, it was like, you mute this part. So now it just opens up. I'm snapping and there's nothing going on.
Just quiet.
It's
quiet snapping. Yeah, fucking YouTube and their copyright bullshit or whatever. So yeah, talking about, we got Hearst Hill in here. What's up, man? Good to have you. Uncle Bill from Dead Pit. What's up, man? Good to have you in here. I think this is the first time you joined us on a stream here, so it's good to have you in here. Saying, "Let's go, you pussy butts." All right, we'll take that. Larry from WGON TV. What's up, man? Good to have you in here. I'm gonna have Larry on a stream in a couple of weeks talking about Living Dead weekend this year, Creep Year, coming up at the beginning of next month. And Larry, in terms of a Romero historian, I mean, that's the guy you want to talk to. And
Yeah,
talk about.
Larry, Larry doesn't know. I shook his hand after the tour but he probably
Mhm.
wouldn't know me from fucking stranger in the crowd. But wow, like he knows his shit to the point where he like studied the patterns on the floor of the mall.
Yeah.
He'd be like, "This is where this happened. This is where the zombie was laying," and then like lays just like a zombie. I'm like, dude, I thought I was a diehard Romero, but nobody reaches Larry's fucking fandom, man. Nobody.
Yeah, I tell people all the time if they're going to the Living Dead weekend for the first time, they got to take that tour because yeah, it's the mall, but it's changed so much over the years. Like if you haven't studied it like that, you're kind of like, it kind of feels like the mall, but it doesn't look the same. But if you take Larry's tour, Larry's just like, no, everything's still here. You just got to look at the design and the pillars and stuff, and people, holy shit. So I highly recommend anybody that.
That tour was awesome. That was one of the highlights of that weekend. And then we went, it was like later because it was like almost it was like 3 hour, 15-minute tour. We got our fucking steps in, man. And then the Night Riders party and looked to be like an abandoned, like American Eagle or something.
Yeah, or like an Aeropostale or something like that. That weird storefront. I think it's an Aeropostale used to have those weird like storefronts where it looks like you're walking into like a Colombian whorehouse or something.
Yeah.
Like,
I sat in a closet while I was eating like really, really cheap pizza. I'm like, man, this is fucking luxury, man. This is my type of vacation.
Very cool. Good to see you in here, Larry. Dave Webb, good to have you in here, man. Your best intros. Uncle Bill saying that intro took his virginity. I'm glad I could take your virginity tonight, Uncle Bill. Always down to take some virginities around here. Let's see, 1911 Guitar Dude, what's up, man? Hi, everyone. That sure was cool opening. AJ's Happy Fun Time channel, what's up, man? Good to have you in here. Let's see who else we got. John Vulo, what's up, man? Been talking to you throughout the past week or so about all things Romero. It's crazy. I mean, there's certain people you can just talk about anything Romero with for just go down any number of roads, and John's one of those guys. So it's always good to have you in here. Larry saying thank you for the compliments. Alex Carlton, what's up? Justin and I are watching. That is my my cousin's wife. So got some family in here tonight. So we better better make it good tonight. So good to have everybody in here. Let me see, making sure everything's sounding good. All right. So where do you want to start?
I guess we start before even Day of the Dead was being made, right? I mean, I sure we start with Creepshow, and I know the 3-picture deal with Sal M. Hassanen. George finally got to make Night Riders, which is like his most personal film, one of my favorite Romero movies, and unfortunately, that opened up to crickets. Then Creepshow was probably one of his biggest commercial hits post Dawn, but unfortunately, I don't know the whole story behind this. Maybe you do. Did Warner Brothers, they pulled the funding after, or the advertising after like 2 weeks? Is there a reason as to why they did that? Because the movie was doing so well. I never understood that whole deal.
I'm not too sure. I'm not really too sure why they did that. I guess they figured, if I were just to guess, they would probably figured like, we made our money back, and and we're good now. We can just go off word of mouth or something. I don't know, but I've never really read like a definitive answer to that, of why Warner Brothers just kind of pulled advertising for Creepshow like that.
That's a big, I think that ties into what we're talking about a lot here too, because imagine if they didn't and that movie becomes like an even bigger commercial hit. Now, I know obviously it's like the horror anthology and it's remembered and beloved by even people that aren't as diehard Romero fans as we are. But I think that I really do wonder in another world, like if that movie makes even more money, do they end up forking over the $6 million that George asked for? Even though I know Salas said we can't do 6 unrated, I can do 3.5. I can give you $3.5 million, and we could do the movie that you want to do. I just wonder in a parallel world, had they not pulled the funding for Creepshow, do they give George the $6 million to make that original fabled Day of the Dead script that I don't know if I'm assuming you've read. It's a fantastic script. I don't know. I sort of wonder if Creepshow had made more money, maybe he would have made that movie and we get that movie. And just out of curiosity.
Well, I think the big thing with Creepshow is that it was an R-rated film. Like they were willing to put up that kind of money for a movie like Creepshow because it was Stephen King was attached and it was getting an R rating. So it doesn't carry the burden that making a film unrated, which George pushed for, because I mean, everybody knows, if you're familiar with it, Sal Hassanine was totally okay with putting up the money to do George's original vision, but it had to be an R rating. Um, George didn't want to do an R rating because he felt like that would kind of cheapen his vision. It wouldn't be what the fans wanted, and he just refused. So George tried to cut it back more and more and more until eventually he just completely rewrote the screenplay into what we got now. Um, so I don't know. I don't really know if Creepshow would have been more of a success, possibly. Um, I think it would have had to have been a much bigger success than it was because Creepshow was successful. But I think by the time that they were getting ready to do Day of the Dead, which was a guarantee in that three picture deal, I mean, the United pretty much said, you can do three pictures. One of them has to be the sequel to Dawn of the Dead, and the other two can be whatever. Night Riders lost money. I mean, it didn't do much. And Creepshow made its money back in a little bit. It was a modest success, but not huge. I think it would have really had to have made a shit ton of money for Salah Hassan for Salah to be like, okay, George, just do whatever you want with Day of the Dead. Because I think by the time Day of the Dead rolled around, Salah was just kind of like trying to recover some of the money that he had lost. Up to that point, I guess. And there were all these issues on the Creepshow while they were filming Creepshow 2 in terms of George, staying under budget and staying on time, which that's always been a thing that people talk that have worked with George in the past. Is George is not the best at staying under budget and working within, kind of like a timeline, a set schedule. George was always, because Creepshow was over schedule. Night Riders was over schedule because of all the storms and shit that blew through while they were filming that. And George has always just been an independent spirit. And to me, like George is just kind of like, I want to just film as much as I can, as long as I can, and get everything I want, and then just shape it later. Whereas when you're working with bigger budgets and you're working within a studio setting, uh, which is why Sala ended up bringing in David Ball, one of the co-producers for Day of the Dead. That's why they brought him in originally for Creepshow, and then brought him over to Day of the Dead, was to kind of keep everything on track and keep everything on schedule. Um, so yeah, I know there's a bunch of reasons um, why they didn't get that original screenplay made, and why George just couldn't get that budget.
And yeah, like while I'm very happy with the movie that we got, and I think nowadays it's a movie that's aged so well that a lot of people would agree that, yeah, and I'm not, trying to be greedy, but I do in another world. And a lot of people point, well, oh, there's similarities between Land of the Dead and that original script, but I'm not as big on Land of the Dead as I am with this. And it's interesting with this particular movie that Romero would downsize everything and downscale it, because it's funny, like Night of Living Dead is as downscale and guerrilla filmmaking as you can get. It's a bunch of people in a farmhouse. It was made on the budget of like 114,000. Then you go with Dawn, which is less than $1 million, but he somehow made that feel so grand and so like global, that this had taken over the world. And even though we don't see much, we see a news station, we see apartment buildings, we see some fields in somewhere in Pennsylvania, and then we see the Monroeville Mall. That's the only four things that we see. Yet he made it feel like it was happening everywhere. And then with this movie, it's interesting now that he has the biggest budget, $3.5 million, which again is pennies, really. We get the exteriors in Florida in the opening, and then we're in a bunker the entire rest of the movie. It's just so interesting. Generally, with a third picture and the most money of the three, you would think he would, let's go, let's make this grand, and that's what that original script was. But I think in a way, downsizing it, downscaling it, ended up working to his benefit, because that's always been the beauty of George Romero, was he made a lot out of nothing. And I think that's the beauty of Day of the Dead, as opposed to some of the pictures he made down the road, like A Dark Half, working with the big studio. We talked about that when you came on my channel. It just, I don't know, it doesn't have that same indie feel, doesn't have that those roots.
Right. Yeah, I agree. And I think that's, of course, $3.5 million in 1985 from what, 1977, 78, from what they had for Dawn of the Dead, with inflation and everything that followed through. I mean, yeah, originally the budget was $2.5 million, I believe. And then Sala gave them an extra $1 million once they sold the VHS rights, I believe. So yeah, $3.5 million to do that. I mean, it's still really, really low. I mean, it's but for an unrated horror film that they're not going to they're not going to be able to do much with in terms of advertising, you know, in prime time and stuff like that. Like that's always been the thing that comes with not having your horror film rated, is that it's, you know, there's it really limits what you're able to do promotion wise. So
Sure. Yeah.
but
But do you remember the first time that you saw Day of the Dead, and what were your initial thoughts and reactions?
oh yeah, I remember, well, first and foremost, I remember Day of the Dead. The first time that I remember seeing the VHS artwork for Day of the Dead, I was probably 3, maybe 4 years old. It's one of my earliest memories in life, and I never realized that that's what it was until later on, and I kind of put 2 and 2 together. Um, but we always used to go and rent movies. There was this little mom and pop video store down by our local mall in Hopkinsville. And I remember being a kid and we'd always go in there and rent movies. My parents would rent something. I'd go to the kids section and I'd rent like a Mickey Mouse tape or something like that. But for whatever reason, one night I just kind of wandered over to the horror section and I caught this glimpse of, it's the cover with, you know, Bub in the foreground and the zombies in the background. And for some reason, that just scared the absolute shit out of me the first time I saw it, because I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what to think of it. I was just like, this is a monster. And I remember that to this day, seeing that for the first time. It was probably one of the first images, like horror images, that I really remember. I was, like I said, I was probably like 3 years old or something at the time. And then years later, seeing that again and kind of putting 2 and 2 together when I saw that VHS again, I was like, holy shit, this is the movie that scared the shit out of me when I was a kid, just looking at the cover. But yeah, and then years later when I discovered all, you know, Romero and all of his movies and stuff, I saw I saw Night 90 first. That was the first Romero-esque zombie movie that I'd ever seen, and I loved it. Then I saw Dawn of the Dead, and of course, goes without saying, I love that as well. Then I watched the original Night of the Living Dead, and I was like, it's okay. It's just black and white and old. You know, I was like, I don't know, 10, 11 years old at the time. So I was just like, it's okay. I like the, you know, the remake better, which is completely opposite now. I like the original much more now. But when you're like 10, 11 years old watching these movies for the first time, you know, you see something from 68 in black and white, you know, no gore really or blood, you know, you're just like, oh, you know, it's a fine movie, whatever. But then I saw Day of the Dead. I think I rented it from like Blockbuster or something. This was the last one that I had seen, and I was like, "Oh, this must be, you know, part of the trilogy or whatnot." So I rented it, took it home, put it in, and I was because like I said, I'd seen all of them before. I loved Dawn of the Dead. I was like, "Well, this has got to be even better than Dawn of the Dead." I mean, this is the next step, you know. So I put it in, I watch it, and the first like 10 minutes when they're in the city and all the zombies are coming out, I was like, holy shit, this is going to be the greatest zombie movie I've ever seen in my entire life. Like, they're going to be like jumping through fucking buildings and shit, running from these zombies and killing zombies left and right, blah, blah. Then as I kept watching, it cuts and they go back and they go underground. And then it's just like, it becomes like this heavy dialogue thing. And I was just like, this isn't what I was expecting. And it's kind of like the reaction that I think a lot of people had when that movie first came out. It was kind of like, oh, this is not exactly what I was expecting. Because I was kind of wanting Dawn of the Dead 2, you know. Um, so now I remember I just ended up fast forwarding through most of it just to get to the gore scenes, because I was just like, I got to see the gore, you know, and I'd see all the gore. And I'd be like, oh, that's cool. And I'd fast forward some more and I get to the end and that was it. Then I went outside and played or whatever. So I didn't think much of it the first time I saw it. I was just like, it's kind of boring. I don't get it. And plus those old VHS tapes, like when you'd rent those old VHS tapes from back in the day, like we take it for granted now because we got, you know, DVD was an upgrade and Blu-rays even more. But man, those VHS tapes, especially when they're in the cave and underground and all that, it's so dark. You can't make out what the hell's going on most of the time. So yeah, watching that, I was just like, man, I don't know what the hell's going on in here. Like, yeah. But then years later, you know, I kind of rediscovered it. I watched it again and kind of got it and kind of just, you know, it fell in love with it. So yeah, the first time I saw Day of the Dead, I wasn't the biggest fan of it. Do you remember what your first impressions of Day of the Dead was the first time you saw it, and kind of where you were and what you had seen up to that point and all that?
Yeah, sure. So I had seen the original Night of the Living Dead. I actually did see them in order, thankfully. It was not a situation where, I saw this one, the fifth one first, and I saw them in order. I saw Night of Living Dead actually on Turner Classic Movies when I was really young. I'm maybe 7, 8, somewhere around there, 7, 8 years old. Saw it and thought it was brilliant. And I was like, this is, man, what a great horror movie. And I was so into it. And then I remember back in the day in the mall, at my local mall, they had a Suncoast Video, and they had that out of print, which is now out of print, Dawn of the Dead Blu-ray from, I think it was Stars. It might have been Anchor Bay Stars did like a collaboration to do that Blu-ray, which is now out of print. And good luck. It's like over $100 Blu-ray. I got that, bought it, and loved Dawn of the Dead. Dawn of the Dead over the years, like as the time went on, became my favorite movie ever. I just loved Dawn of the Dead. So in turn, I was so excited to see Day of the Dead. And around that same time, there was a Hollywood Video that was closing down for whatever reason. And I remember going there with my grandmother, and she said, you can get 2 movies. They're going out of business. She's like, I can get them for a decent price. Like, buy them, not rent them. You can buy them. So I went up and down the horror aisle, and the 2 movies I got, one was the original Hills of Eyes from Wes Craven, which is another one of my favorite like 70s exploitation drive-in horror movies. And then, of course, the other was Day of the Dead. And it was the Anchor Bay 2-disc special edition, but in like, you know, a Hollywood Video case. So it still has I should have grabbed it. It still has the HO for horror on it, the little sticker, and it does have both discs. So I was like a kid on Christmas when I got these 2 movies. And I remember I watched them back to back, even though they have no correlation other than being really good movies. And I loved Day of the Dead. And in fact, and this will sound like I'm a whore. I'm going to sound like a horror right now. I liked Day of the Dead more than Dawn of the Dead upon my first watch. Now, that didn't last long, but I remember being like, you know what? I actually think that's the best of the 3. Maybe it was recency biased. Maybe I was just a kid and stupid. I don't know. But I did love what I saw, and I thought it was brilliant. And I think always what stuck with me was that this movie is almost like a play. Like it's like a very Shakespearean play with like all of this crazy over the top cursing and really interesting stage actors. Like this is of all Romero's films, this one feels like the most like a stage play to me. And I mean that in the best of ways. And then, of course, the gore reel at the end, I just thought was some of the best stuff I had ever seen. Ripping apart Joe Pilato here, you know, whichever way he is, and choke on him. And, you know, I just was blown away by it the first time I saw it. I thought it was funny where it had to be. I thought it, you know, brought up engaging conversations and arguments as opposed to, I saw you posted that poll, which I'm curious if we're going to talk about that. I just loved everything about it. So yeah, upon a first watch, yes, I liked it better than Dawn of the Dead, but again, didn't last long, but I still do love this movie. And I would say, I don't know how you feel about this. This probably be my second favorite of the Dead movies, and probably like third or fourth favorite of all of George's movies.
Of the Dead movies, I'd still probably I'd go Dawn, Night, then Day. I just Night of Living Dead is just one of those that just I can watch anytime, and it's I don't know. I just love it. I mean, Day of the Dead, same thing. I can watch it anytime. I just watched it earlier today, and for the 100th time, and was just like glued to it. But yeah, I'd probably go Dawn, Night, Day. In terms of like overall, I would probably have Day 4th. I'd say 4th. I'd probably go Dawn, Martin, Night of Living Dead, Day of the Dead.
Yeah, Martin would be my number 2 Romero favorite too.
Yeah, I just love Martin. Like, I'm obsessed with that movie. That's probably my second favorite movie of all time, honestly. But yeah, you're talking about that poll. So yeah, earlier, I think this was Thursday, earlier this week, I put up a poll. About 2 days ago, asking, when it comes to dealing with the zombie apocalypse, which of these 4 characters do you agree with the most? And the four choices were, of course, Sarah, who thinks that we should find a cure, Dr. Logan, who thinks that we should try and make them behave, John, Flyboy, which is funny, they call him Flyboy in Day of the Dead too. It was kind of like a common vernacular in the Romero universe, is that that's the only place I've ever heard that term. I don't know if there's any other movies or anything that refer to helicopter pilots as flyboys, but he says we should just get juiced up and spend what time we got left soaking up some sunshine on an island somewhere. And then, of course, Captain Rhodes, who just will come out and say that we should just blow the piss out of all of them. And looking at the tallies, I don't know what this says about my subscriber base here, but 160 votes on this poll. 53% of the of you guys out there said we should just blow the piss out of them. No hope left. No, let's find a cure. Let's make things better. No, let's just blow the piss out of all of them. Then second place, of course, we go, we should get juiced up and just say fuck it. Third place, we should find a cure that had 13%, 31% for getting juiced up, and then 3%. I guess nobody really agrees with or identifies with Dr. Logan's idea, which is interesting because it's the only theory in the movie that can actually be demonstrated that actually works, is trying to make them behave.
That's the one I voted for. I just looked it up. Yeah, I'm one of the 3% people. So
you're a 3%er.
I'm a 3%er. Yeah.
So I just thought that was interesting, just the outcome of that poll. I guess most people are just like, fuck it, let's just, But I mean, then it brings up the question that Dr. Logan poses in the movie. You don't have enough ammunition to do that. We're outnumbered by 400,000 to 1 by my calculations. You don't have, are you really going to blow the piss out of all of them? And then, of course, doing that, I mean, we all have to die at some point. So I've always said, the living dead will always win because everybody has to die at some point, and when we do, we come back. But yeah, I just thought that was an interesting. I didn't expect it. I thought maybe most people would say, fuck it, let's just go get juiced up on island and live it up the last few days. But yeah, I thought that was pretty interesting. Turn of events there. You see what some of the comments are here. But yeah, like I guess maybe that's just the mindset of most people these days. Is just like, fuck it, just blow the piss out of them.
If you have the ammo to kill 400,000 to 1, God bless you. I don't think so.
Yeah, I mean, I guess unless you look at it in terms of like Land of the Dead, when they actually have, the Dead Reckoning, which they have all this stockpile of ammunition and can just roll through these cities and just gun down as many zombies as they need to get what they need. I guess that's one way to look at it, but at the same bit, that's the thing. It's like Logan was able to demonstrate in the movie that you can train these zombies, by rewarding them for good behavior, basically. By rewarding them, you can train them to like not be aggressive towards humans, and you could probably train them to go out in the wild and gather, supplies and, fight against this. You could arm them and have them go out and kill all the zombies. So I don't know. I kind of lean with Logan as well, but I guess
part of the 3%. Holy shit! It's probably just us.
We're in the minority. Zombie Grease says 1,000% roads. I don't want them to do anything but drop over. Yeah, that's. Let's see. And then Johnny replies, "Yep," and then get juiced up. So I guess they, go on a hunt, on a killing spree, and then get juiced up after the fact. Let's see. Rob says there's no reason survivors couldn't wipe them out. All you need is some protected elevation and baseball bats. That's an interesting choice. Baseball bats. Get me 7 feet off the ground on something that they can't move, tip over, or climb, and I could smash the heads of a horde of 1,000 zombies little by little. I mean, yeah, you'd probably get tired and pass out before you'd finish, but I guess that's one way to go about it. But yeah, pretty much everybody in here, anything Joe Pilato says, I'm agreeing with, says Bing 78. See, Paul Farver says I have to go with Rhodes on this one. He's with Rhodes. Shooting him in the head has been the tried and true method for dealing with the undead since the dawn of time, or at least 1968. It was too late to try and find a cure or try to civilize them. Getting juiced up is just a given, but only after shooting them in the head. So I guess pretty much everybody's on a nice mix of, gunning them down and then getting juiced up and living it up after the fact. So I thought that was fairly interesting turn of events there. Let's see. Graveyard Shift says before I go do or Hearst Hill says before I go do a graveyard shift, Alpha, I bought my tickets for the Goblin show. And oh, you lucky son of a bitch, man! They're playing in New York. Are you planning on trying to catch that?
They're playing at like a winery. I saw.
Yes, City Winery in New York.
Maybe, I don't know. I'm on the fence. I really don't know. Maybe.
I would love to check that out. But yeah, they're only playing L.A., Austin, and New York. And I was just like, I don't think I'll be able to take a quick trip to Austin or anything to see him. But that's awesome, man. Let me know how that goes. And see, 19 Lemon Guitar Dude, have you heard any updates on the missing negative for Day? I'm still holding out hope it's found so a 4K can be made. And then Larry has a response here. Mike Felcher did a live video last Saturday and revealed that the day negative is accounted for. Interesting. It was just inaccessible for many years. So that's good news. I didn't catch that bit of news. So yeah, that's pretty interesting. Yeah, if it's accounted for and they know where that negative is, then yeah, I would fully expect a 4K at some point. I don't know what do you think about all that? Do you think we're going to get a 4K anytime soon, Grande? I mean, if it does come out, is it something you'd plan to pick up? Who would do it? Would it be another Scream Factory release? I think that's one of the most like requested 4Ks that a lot of people are wanting is a Day of the Dead 4K, and I think it would look awesome.
I think it would look awesome, but I don't know. It's not like my number one most wanted for 4K. It's a movie that primarily takes place underground in caves. So it's not, I don't know. It's not like the opening shots in Florida. Sure, I would love to see that shit in 4K, but like that's a very small like part of the movie. So I don't know. I don't think it will happen anytime soon. Like I've heard so much shit about it that it almost feels like it's a fable at this point. Like I heard shit that it was in another country or another continent at point. I don't know how true any of this stuff was, but like I was like reading, I'm like, what the hell? Like this is just a comedy of errors. So I don't know. I would totally get it. Let's hope it's not Shout Factory. Let's hope it's not. I don't know who though. I mean, Kino would be cool because that's Felcher's baby. So I mean, I would be all for Kino doing a 4, and their 4Ks are not only good looking but affordable. That Kino is definitely like when they do a sale, that's a sale. You know, like Severn and Vinegar Syndrome and all that. They take fucking notes. That's a sale. You know.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I'd love to see Kino do it. Either way, I'd love to see Felcher involved with it in some way too, doing something for it. I would love to hear another. So there's a couple of commentary tracks out there. There's the one with Roger Avery that was, of course, on the that Anchor Bay release that Felcher worked on back in the day, which I thought was an interesting commentary because I mean Roger Avery, of course, was like the co-writer of Pulp Fiction with Tarantino and worked a lot with Tarantino those early years. So it was interesting hearing his take on Day of the Dead and listening to him say things like, I don't care, I don't care who is up for the Oscar in '85. Howard Sherman should have won for Best Actor. And I was just like, wow, I was kind of thinking that too. I'm glad he came out and said it.
He was great in that. But like also what I know there's 2 making of Day of the Deads. Did Felcher do both of those? As I know, the older one on the Anchor Bay DVD, I think that was Felcher, but I'm not sure.
I think the one on the Anchor, I know Felcher was involved in the one that Scream Factory did, which was the World's End, I think was the name of it. But the original one, which was the Many Days of Day of the Dead, I think that was a David Gregory.
Okay, both are really good. I think both are fantastic.
Yeah, which I think Felcher had something to do with both of those. I know for a fact he had something to do with both those releases. But in terms of the making of documentaries, I could be wrong, but I don't think that he was. I think he may have done some stuff for it, but it wasn't his project on that original one. Stukas Dive, what's up, man? Good to have you in here. Synth Addict, I guess he's just got back from the mall. Hey, Off and Grande just did a local mall tour for fun. Sadly, not Monroeville. Well, you're getting ready, man. You're working your way up to the Monroeville Mall, so you got to go, get in the mall spirit, I guess. But I saw he was live on his channel before that. Before hopping on here, kind of walking around the mall and showing what I don't really go to the mall that often. We have a mall in Evansville, but it's just I don't ever care to go that often. Is there any malls up in your area anymore?
They're fucking all closed by me. They're just extinct, and I'm scared that Monroeville might be next. Unfortunately, I'm so thankful I got to go. You don't even know. Like I'm so thankful.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean with the with the DoubleTree closing right next to it and all that. I mean, it is kind of in a kind of up in the air right now. It's not in any imminent danger, I would say, but I do hear stories. I follow a lot of groups on Facebook that are like Monroeville related in that local area and stuff. And I hear people all the time talking about, oh, this store's closing, or the mall's in trouble and there's nobody at the mall, and it's just like, it does make you worry. So again, folks, I tell you, if you're watching and you haven't been in the Monroeville Mall and you've always wanted to go, now or never. Like, the sooner the better. Let's see. Stuka says, I'd be afraid to live on the island because all the weather forecasts. all the weather forecasts are down. Wouldn't want to get hit by a surprise hurricane. Yeah, that's true. And plus, I'm a friggin' Northern European white guy, so I don't know how well I would do on an island. I'd probably fry. 5 minutes out in the sun, I get redder than a dog's dick. So I don't know. Rick the North Going Llama, what's up, man? Good to have you in here. I remember that name. That's one of the best. One of the best YouTube names I remember. Rick the North Going Llama. I like it. McHorror, what's up, man? If they are decomposing and rotten, what is left to save? That's true. That's true. I guess that's the interesting thing about 28 Days Later that I liked is that to show that they weren't living or that they were living but they were just infected. Is that eventually over time they would starve to death and die. That's the thing about the zombies, that they eventually would just rot and decay and fall into nothing. So it's always an interesting thing to think about. Uncle Bill always tried to figure out how Frankenstein's plan would work. Who the hell is going to train millions of zombies? Do you get trained zombies to train the other ones? Well, that's kind of the thing that I guess the theory that a lot of people have always had. How many would you need to train? You wouldn't have to train them all, I guess. So you could just kind of do like in Land of the Dead, create a civilization and then just send out your trained zombies to gather supplies and stuff like that. Maybe I don't know, but yeah, that's always the thing too. It's like you wouldn't be able to train every single zombie out there, I guess.
I don't know. Maybe my thing is it's worth a shot, even though, yeah, it's you're probably in that situation when you're outnumbered by that much, you're probably just fucked. Maybe you're just better off getting juiced up, and I don't know. I would say like I would be with Logan first just to try it, but if that's not working, yeah, I'm not trying to blow the piss out of all of them. There's not enough bullets in the world. No way, man.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and Logan brings that up. It's like, can you really blow the piss out of them? All of them?
Time to do that was at the beginning.
Yeah, but we fucked that up. Let's see, McCor, where did Felcher do a live? He usually does like live streams on his Facebook page, like unannounced. He just kind of hops on and just answers questions for a couple hours. And sometimes he'll do like it's really fun live auctions. Have you ever seen one of those, John?
I haven't, man. I probably broke if I did. Probably good I haven't seen it.
Yeah, even if you don't buy it, they're entertaining as hell to watch. They're fun to see these people like trying to, like Larry's a big one. Like anytime I'm on there, like when I'm trying to bid on something Romero related, because Felcher has all kinds of Romero related stuff. Larry, I told him this the other night. I'm like, dude, I've been outbid by you on so many of those Felcher auctions over the years that it's. I'm fully aware that what your collection probably looks like, but it's an entertaining just to watch if nothing else.
Yeah, he's cool. He's cool. He's definitely an entertaining guy. I know I saw Uncle Bill in the comments. I was so hoping for him to do that Killer Kid show with Dead Pit, but they can't seem to get a hold of him. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Felcher, he's been working on that Trick or Treat. He's been busy working on some shit, not Trick or Treat. Yeah, they've been hounding him about that Trick or Treat shit for a while.
They hounded him when you were on camera with him.
Yeah.
You were talking to him.
I was sitting there. Yeah, I was sitting there trying to have a civil conversation with the man at Horror Hound, and here comes fucking CK around the corner screaming about the damn Trick or Treat release.
I'm watching that live.
That's why he won't come on. That's why he won't come on your fucking show, Uncle Bill's, because you guys harass him and berate him every chance you get. Poor guy. He's just trying to do his best to give you guys a quality product, and you guys are poor man. I feel bad for him. Let's see. Thought he was MIA. No, he hasn't gone missing, McHorror. We haven't had to put out an all points bulletin for him yet, but he does have a way of disappearing sometimes. Since that's why I sacrificed stuff to go this year, Monroeville Mall seems endangered. Yeah, well, I'm glad you made the decision to come this year, man. You won't be disappointed, I'll tell you that.
Definitely not. It was so fun. So worth it.
The Nike missile site from Day near Pittsburgh seems to be gone now. Yeah, I don't know. That's one location I've never visited. I haven't been to that location yet.
And you visited a lot of those. You visited like Braddock, which I would never do without a bulletproof vest. I drove through Braddock and was scared for my life. I was like, yeah, I would never ever get out of the car here.
Yeah, I was a little weird, especially when you're going up to like Kuda's house, like the house from Martin, like that little patch of neighborhood there. like I parked and got out, and I was just kind of like, I better make this quick. Make this a quick trip. Good night, Hearst. Glad you stopped by. Good to say hello. Rick, North Going Llama says Day of the Dead is a great movie from my youth. Agree. Up on these comments. We'll get back into the day. Nope, I think it became a generational thing watching it with my nephews when they were younger. Dude, I've kind of gotten into that lately. For my daughter, she's 3 years old. She'll come up to my room every now and then, and she'll go over to my Blu-rays and shit. I got all that on the shelf, and she'll look through all of them, and she'll pick one. And I'll say, "All right, what do you want to watch?" She'll just pick anything random. I'll just let her pick it. Now, like earlier today, she picked House by the Cemetery, and I was like, maybe we shouldn't watch that.
You don't like House by the Cemetery?
No, I mean, I'm not gonna let a 3-year-old fucking watch House by the Cemetery.
I thought you were like, pick another Fulci.
No, she just picked it because it had a cool artwork.
Dr.
I was like, I don't know, maybe we shouldn't watch this one. But she's been just every chance, like she'll pull Evil Dead 2 off fucking shelf. She wants to watch Evil Dead 2 all the time, and my fiance freaks out. She's like, she doesn't need to be watching this. I'm like, yeah, it's fine. You know.
I think that would be fine. Yeah.
Yeah.
Why not?
I mean, she doesn't. I don't guess she has nightmares or anything about it, but she'll watch it and have a. Like if it's scary, she'll cover her eyes. It's scary, or she'll say it's Halloween, or whatever. However she copes with it, but she thinks it's funny more than anything. She loves Creepshow. We've watched Creepshow twice.
I'm sure she'd love Bob if you guys ended up actually watching House by the Cemetery.
Maybe in a couple of years. Maybe when she's 5. Maybe maybe I'll introduce her to Fulci when she turns 5. That'll be the theme of her birthday party when she turns 5. Is Fulci at 5? We'll have a marathon.
Fulci at 5. Hell yeah. Watch the Devil's Honey.
I stopped even trying. Oh God, I stopped even trying with Felcher's auctions because people are insane. Yeah, dude. The last auction that they had, Larry was in a bidding war with. I don't even know who the guy is, but Felcher had like I forget what it was, but it was all this like stuff for Creepshow 2. It was like original artwork. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was like this crazy once in a lifetime stuff that he had gotten, and he was auctioning off, and it went for like $900 or something like that. I mean, the guy eventually ended up, because Larry never gets outbid on that stuff, but even Larry had to tap out at some point because that dude was not stopping until he got his hand. I don't know whatever happened to it.
$900. Yeah, people are insane. I couldn't.
Yeah, I mean,
what it was.
It got nuts. Phil says he can shit and fall back in it. He's given us tons of hell over the years too. That's true too. Yeah, that's funny. Felcher and Dead Pit have been kind of synonymous since the beginning of them starting to do that damn show. Let's see. Yeah, it's going through Braddock quickly. I would say, yeah. Although, I mean, it looks a little more rough than it actually is. I've gotten walked up and down the strip before, and yeah, there are a few people that'll follow you, and I was,
Jeez, you keep digging your grave here, buddy.
There's, it's a little sketchy, but what it is, what it is. Just, don't be such a pansy. House by the Cemetery has kids. That's true. I mean, she probably would get a kick out of Bob like everybody else, but let's see. Okay, saw Day with a Dawn loving friend back when it opened in '85, and it took a while to grow on us. I love it now. Yeah, that was kind of my experience with Day of the Dead. First time I saw it, I wasn't the biggest fan. Like I was telling Grande at the beginning, I don't know if you were on. The first time I saw it, I loved the beginning, loved the end, and then everything in the middle, I kind of fast forwarded through. The first time I saw it, I was like, 11, 12. I was just looking for zombie action and shit back in the day. I didn't actually take the time to watch it and take it in for what it was.
You certainly weren't alone when this movie came out. I mean, everybody pretty much hated it. Like it was like almost a universal disappointment. It's at least what it seemed like.
Yeah, I mean, even there's the story that Laurie Cardille tells when they had a screening in Pittsburgh, and they had all the actors and stuff were there, and she recalls that at the end of it, there were boos in the crowd when it was over.
Wow.
Now, that's been debated over the years because I've heard, Jarlath Conroy doesn't really remember that. Savini doesn't really have a recollection of that. But I mean, Laurie, pretty much says, "Oh yeah, the first time people were booing at the end of it." So I thought that was interesting. Mayor says, "Did I hear that correctly? What's up, Mayor? Day of the Dead's negative has been found. Yeah, apparently so. That's what Larry was saying earlier. I guess Felcher mentioned that on a stream the other night on his Facebook channel or his Facebook page. I was trying to watch you and my friend's TikTok live multitasking. Good luck, man. All right, about caught up here. Get a couple more McCore. Someone needs to try to get Bob on a live stream. I already lives in Chicago." There you go, Uncle Bill. There's your next guest for Dead Pit for May of the Dead. Go out, reach out to the kid who played Bob. Rick says the actor who played Still did a great job as the beer gut gung ho sergeant.
Gary Clark.
Gary Clark was great.
He was.
Uncle Bill probably has some good Gary Clark stories. The interview that they did with Gary Clark that went on for like 3 hours, and I think
it was like in the morning, and they were eating pancakes. That's one of the best Dead Pit interviews too ever.
It is great. I mean, they talk about it's like hilarious because they'll talk about it because Gary Clark pretty much for a Romero fan, it's gold. Like because it's Gary Clark pretty much telling his entire life fucking story over like 2.5, 3 hours. But yeah, they cut that down to like 30 minutes, and they eventually put up the entire interview. But yeah, it's fascinating if you're a Romero fan. But I could imagine because they could barely get a word in edgewise. I mean, he went from like the start of his life to the end. It's fucking crazy.
Yeah, no, he didn't. I think he was in the NFL briefly, if I'm not mistaken, Gary.
Yeah,
I don't remember if he went into that in the interview, but yeah, that interview is not. I know CK is always like, you can hear me pouring maple syrup on my pancakes.
Yeah, he New Orleans Saints, I think he played for a short period there.
That's crazy.
Let's see. But let's get back to the topic at hand here. I'll catch back up on some of these comments here in a little bit. So yeah, the first time we saw Day of the Dead, those are our first impressions. But I think the interesting thing we talked about the lack of success at the time. Like the first time we saw it, I mean, we're talking years and years after the fact from when it came out. Well, like for me, the year would have probably been 2000, maybe the first time I saw it.
I would have been mid 2000s, probably like 2007, 2008. Like Land of the Dead and Diary of the Dead were probably out already.
Okay.
By the time I saw it.
So yeah, we're talking, 15, 20 years after the movie first came out. But Day of the Dead came out in 1985, which to me is one of the best years in horror history, I think. And that's just in terms of all the classic great films that came out in 85 for horror. I'm going to read off a few here. Friday the 13th Part 5 was 1985. To me, that's my favorite Friday.
That's my favorite too. Yeah.
I fucking, because to me, like the Friday the 13th movies, the first one's a classic, but then after a while, it just kind of became like the characters were very two-dimensional just blah. But by Part 5, they were all characters, like everybody in that. Yeah, awesome.
Oh, this damn thing.
It's been going well so far. The background's been going well so far, but I just love the rich, wild characters like Junior and the fucking Ethel and fucking Miguel Nunez.
You ain't so pretty yourself, I ain't so pretty myself, I know.
It's a great movie. It's fucking. The
characters are so fucking great in that, man. I saw that this past Friday the 13th. It's screened by me, and man, it was so cool. We saw it on 35 millimeter, and it was like a cut of it where they had Spanish subtitles on the bottom for some reason. It was, I don't know why it made it so much funnier. Like when Joey was saying hi to the women, it said "Hola, chicas." The whole theater erupted in laughter, man. It was amazing.
Hola, chicas.
Hola, chicas.
To me, my favorite part about Friday the 13th Part 5 is there's a man with no life in his eyes. That weird, funky ass fucking dance that girl's doing with that music. Pseudo Echo is the band that does that song.
85, I think, is the best year in horror's history. You have Fright Night, you had Return of the Living Dead, you had Reanimator, you had this movie. It just had so many like all-time classics. Did you have more you were going to list?
Yeah, I made a list of shit here.
Go for it.
85. You named most of them. I mean, we had Nightmare on Elm Street 2, which at the time wasn't beloved, but I think people have come around to it over the years. Demons, 1985.
Oh, hell yeah.
Phenomena, Argento's Phenomena was 85.
Oh, my third favorite Argento.
Hills Have Eyes 2, The classic
That's a
for Wes
bad
Craven
one.
was in 85. Ghoulies was 85. So I mean 85, but if you look at what all those movies had kind of had in common, is that there's a especially that 80s party vibe to it. I've always talked about 85 being kind of this, you know, right in the middle of the 80s. Horror in general in the 80s kind of had that party vibe to it. You know, Demons, you had the metal music and stuff, and you know, while it is gory and terrifying or whatnot, but it does have kind of a party vibe to it. Return of the Living Dead, of course, is kind of do you want to party, that type of shit. And then comes Day of the Dead right in the middle of that year. And here's this dark, underground, angry, kind of viscerally hopeless movie. And I feel like maybe that hurt it a lot too, the time period that it came out, because we're in the middle of like Freddy and Jason and the slasher craze, and then you know everything's which
Let
all those
me
movies are fantastic, but you know, go ahead.
let me ask you this. Now, I don't know if you'll agree with this or not, but I'm curious. Like, while I like this movie as much, if not more, than Return of Living Dead, I think Return of Living Dead fit this decade a lot better than George's movie. Like Night of Living Dead, it perfectly goes with the late 60s and the transitional period into where horror was going in the 70s. Whereas Dawn of the Dead, it's like, the bright colors, the fun in the mall, just that movie feels very late 70s. Day of the Dead, I don't know how well it reflects the 80s. And I know that's always when George's thing in interviews. He said, oh, maybe I make one of these every 10 years to look back on the times, reflect on whatever's going on. This one, of the first three, I think does that the weakest. I don't think this movie works as much as a 1980s movie as opposed to Return of the Living Dead. I always say Return of the Living Dead is the zombie movie we needed in 1985, but this movie is probably the better overall movie. But how do you feel about that?
I completely agree. To me, Dawn of the Dead is more of an 80s feeling movie than Day of the Dead. Like to me, Dawn of the Dead is kind of where the 80s began for horror. Um, in terms of like the over the top gore, the party atmosphere, to me the colors. Because I mean, you tell me if I told you there's a horror movie about zombies in a shopping mall, you think shopping mall, you automatically think of the 80s. Because I mean, that was just the height of shopping malls, even though
Yeah.
Dawn was kind of at the very beginning. Day of the Dead feels more like it should have been in the 90s. It feels more like an angry 90s, like mid 90s horror film. Um, later in the 90s, it got a little more teen party, I guess, or whatnot. Um, but yeah, I completely agree. I love Return of the Living Dead. George was never a huge fan of Return of the Living Dead. Um, I think that a lot of that has to do with the fact of, his relationship with John Russo and kind of how they kind of took that property from Russo and kind of just took it from him and made it whatever they wanted, which, turned out to be a pretty damn good movie. I'm not faulting him for that. But I think, George was kind of was on Russo's side a little bit on that aspect of it, but also think that I think George kind of felt like Return kind of fucked Day of the Dead's opening, kind of fucked its success up too by coming out that same year, because it was kind of confusing for people, I'm sure. Because I remember growing up all the time, like when I was first getting into all these movies, I would hear from people like, the aunts and uncles talking about Return of the Living Dead. Oh, that's the sequel to Night of the Living Dead. Everybody just assumed that was George Romero. I always heard people saying, "Oh, George Romero, he did that Return of the Living Dead movie," because that was a huge movie in my neck of the woods because it takes place in Kentucky and nothing ever takes place in Kentucky. So growing up, any movie that took place in Kentucky was a very popular movie around here. So everybody's like, "Oh yeah, Return of the Living Dead. That's that George Romero movie that took place in Louisville." And I'm like, "Oh, okay, yeah, I guess." And then years later, I found out I was like, "That's not George Romero at all." But there's a connection there. But
My uncle always tells a story that he and his friends in 1985, they went to go see, like they saw all the horror movies around that time. They saw Friday the 13th, part 3 in 3D in the theater. Like they were like mid-teens going into their 20s. And they went to Return of the Living Dead thinking it was the sequel to Dawn. And like they were like very confused. They were like, "What was it? Punk rock?" They didn't get the movie at all. And then they, of course, when they got in there, oh, this is not a George Romero movie. Like, what the heck, And I'm pretty sure Return of the Living Dead was July of '85. What was the exact release date of Day? Was it later? Like
Day was kind of so the way that Day was released, because it was a much smaller release. I've heard Gornick say that Hassanine only did maybe he says about 100 prints of Day of the Dead that they would
Wow.
just kind of ship around here and there in different territories over that time period.
Jesus.
Then I've heard other people say that it was closer to 500 or 600 prints, but if you look at kind of like if you kind of look at it, 100 sounds about right for what it did and how many theaters it was playing at a time.
And what it grossed, sure. Yeah, that's not
Yeah,
surprising at all.
but initially the first few screenings took place right in the middle of 85, July of 85. So I mean they came out literally right at the almost the exact same time. So I'm sure it did create a lot of confusion in the marketplace, as George always talked about over the years.
Can't imagine going to the theater and having that option. Like, how cool would that be? Like,
Oh yeah, I mean, just any of these movies. I mean, you go to a theater and you're like, oh, Fright Night or fucking, you know, Reanimator. I mean, just seeing it's 85 was a great year for horror.
I think it's the best. I would say it's the best year for horror, and 80 and 78 would be up there too.
Yeah. I think for the 80s, I think 85 would probably be right up there for me. I think that's kind of hard to beat. Although 1980, I mean, The Shining, Friday the 13th, Maniac, I mean, all those fucking the birth of the slasher films.
Macabre, Umberto Bava.
Macabre.
Talk about some good head.
Yeah, 80 was a crazy year too. So yeah, it'd be between 80 and 85, I think.
Sure.
Where was I? Jesus, I'm far behind on these.
Yeah, the comments have been pretty good here.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to skip around. So if I miss your comments, guys, I apologize. Mayor says I saw Day in a practically empty theater back in 85. You and probably most people. It was probably fairly empty. I heard he may have a broken coccyx from sliding through the bathroom. What are you talking about? Oh, you're talking about CK's. So yeah, last night they did a stream on Dead Pit, and CK left to take a shit and never came back. So we were all kind of concerned for CK's safety. Since says Adam the Woo had a great Florida tour of day shooting locations. You okay?
Yeah, I'm trying to fix my camera.
Your hand keeps coming into focus, and then I just see nothing but Captain Rhodes.
I'm gonna be right back. Let me just refresh this.
All right, I'm gonna try to catch up on some of these comments.
Yeah, sure.
Quick. Even getting the high angle shots with sneaky ways of accessing buildings. Yeah, he's done great stuff. Since his best thing about part 5 is the enchilada scene in the Voorhees Girl, the director was actually a pornographer. The director of part 5 was actually Danny Steinman, who did Savage Streets, and was actually the son of Herbert R. Steinman, who was one of the financiers for Dawn of the Dead. So there's a little fun trivia. So that's how Friday the 13th Part 5, works its way into the Romero lore. I got a bomb on me, line of nowhere might be my favorite line.
I got a bomb on me.
Pseudo Echo rules. I agree. I do love that song. There's a man with no life in his eyes. I just don't know how to dance like that. I don't know what kind of dance that was. I guess that's an 80s
I
thing.
couldn't believe they said that lady was the daughter of the woman from Elm Street 3. That was like, Andale. The one that plays Patricia Arquette's mom. That's
really?
Yeah, I was always like, holy shit, like that is so wild.
I did not know that. Since says Day's tone was dark, but so was Night, and people love it. Yeah, but Night came out like we were saying. Night came out in '68, a much angrier time. We're in the middle of Vietnam, and people, civil rights movement, and shit just seemed to be chaotic in '68. And by '85, we're talking cocaine and
people expected a party. It should have
been
shot in Studio 54. I think that maybe would have made people happy.
Yeah. Uncle Bill says, I think what you said earlier was true. People expected it to be like Dawn, like a full-out action, epic, fun adventure film. Yeah, and like I said, I think that would have like we mentioned, it would work better in the '80s. That would have been a perfect '80s movie, Dawn of the Dead. Since his return is very silly but fun. I agree. Yep, Dan O'Bannon also wrote screenplay for Alien. He sure did. Didn't he? Dan O'Bannon did he work? Did he do the screenplay, or he did something for Total Recall too? Didn't he? Or am I thinking of
so.
somebody
He
else?
also did. He worked on Dead and Buried.
That's right.
He's. I would say he's like a really underrated guy when it comes to
agree.
Like, great horror minds. Man, Dan O'Bannon was great.
I agree. Yeah, he's directed Return of the Living Dead as well.
Yeah.
Mayor says, I remember going to the mall in the 80s and getting strange looks and some guy yelling punk at me like an insult. I couldn't do anything but laugh at him. Yeah, we had a little Grande 3D action there for a second. It was like Friday the 13th Part 3. And they got the pole. And they're just like, woo! Rick says the worst of the Return of the Living Dead series to me was Part 3. Raven, well, that Part 3 was I don't think that one had an extra title, but that was the one where it was the what's her name?
Part 3 is Melinda Clarke. Raven to the Grave is Part 5, which was like a direct to Sci-Fi Channel movie.
Yeah, 4 and 5 are both dog shit.
The Crapolis.
Yeah, those are both terrible. But yeah, it's okay. I think I'm fairly caught up on the comments there. Let's see. I wish we can talk about John Harrison's soundtrack, his score to Day of the Dead. I think that'd be something good. I was listening to that earlier. What are your thoughts between Day of the Dead and Creepshow? Which one do you prefer in terms of, because I think John Harrison, both of those are iconic horror scores. I've heard people say, I've heard it from both ends. Some people love the Day of the Dead score. I've heard people say the Day of the Dead score is superior to Goblin's score for Dawn of the Dead. Even
what?
Yeah, I you know,
I don't know about that.
George thinks that that's his favorite score of any film he ever did was Day of the Dead. Day of the Dead's his favorite of his Dead films. But he absolutely loved the score for Day of the Dead that John Harrison did. But then, I've also heard people that cannot stand that score. It's too Caribbean. It's too,
I would say tropical. It's very tropical score.
Which is interesting because I always wondered, was that I guess I could research this at some point, but I've always wondered, did the score come before the rewrites to the screenplay, or did he do the score post the new screen? Because I feel like that score was kind of written for the original script as opposed to what we got. You know what I mean? Just kind of because the original screenplay, a lot of it does take place on an island and, all that. So it feels like the music was fit more for that original screenplay as opposed to the screenplay that ended up getting shot. But what are your thoughts on the score from John Harrison? I know you're a huge John Harrison fan in general.
I'm a diehard John Harrison fan. He's like the only guy that I wish was there that I didn't get to meet in the Living Dead weekend when I went last year. But I am a huge fan. I like the score a lot. I don't know if I would say it's better than Dawn, or I would say Creepshow is the better of the two. I know you initially posed the question. I love the Creepshow score from John Harrison, but I still like the score. It's still a really, really good score. I love how the movie opens and the score just immediately hooks you in. Like, hello, bum, 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 bum,
yeah.
I mean, it's epic. And then even towards the end where the zombies are coming down after Miguel, like kind of like that. I love the music there. I mean, I actually think it's a really good score. And there's even that small they throw back briefly. I love that. It's like
it honestly took me years to catch that too. I don't know why.
Oh, really? Wow, that's surprising. The first time I watched it, I was like, there's a Dawn of the Dead nod,
Yeah, I don't know why it took me that long.
I love the score, and I know that you attempted to watch the Tales from the Dark Side until you tapped out about, I think, Painkiller. That might have made you tap out, or the one with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
I don't think I got to. I think that one was coming up, and I was just kind of like,
Yeah, you had more respect for yourself. That's a good thing. I needed to learn that. But in one of the episodes, there's an episode called Satanic Piano where John Harrison directed it. There's a lot of the unused music that he didn't get to use here. He uses it in that episode. So if you watch that episode, it's like the rest of the Day of the Dead score we never got to hear. And it's really good. I mean, I think it's fantastic. It's very like, I don't know how to explain it, like synthesizer-y kind of, and then like tropical, but I don't know. I really always liked the score. I thought he did a really good job with it personally.
Yeah, I've always liked the score. The tropical aspect doesn't really bother me as much. And Tales from the Dark Side's one that I'm going to go back to at some point. I think it was just I made the mistake of trying to make content out of watching it. Because the whole reason I do this channel and do the streams I do is because I just want to talk about what I want to talk about, and that changes from week to week. So when I'm like, oh, I gotta watch this and do one every week, it was just kind of like, so it wasn't the show itself. I actually enjoyed more of the episodes than not. It was just the idea of like, oh, I got to keep watching these, and TV shows are hard for me to get through anyway.
I'm the same way, honestly. Yeah.
So I'm more of a movie guy, but yeah, in terms of the soundtrack, I love the soundtrack for the most part. There are some soundtrack wise at the end of like the original sound, like the end song of Day of the Dead, when it's like holding you,
whole new world.
It's so fucking weird and out of left field. Which is funny. When me and my fiance first met, we were making like a joint song list or whatever on Spotify, and I threw that on. I put it on there. I did. Let me take you to the world inside you. Yeah,
amazing.
So yeah, that was a little out of left field. I don't understand that choice. But in terms of just like a score for the movie, I think it's mostly perfect, and in many ways. The do 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 do, like that works so well to me. Like that's kind of like the prototypical horror zombie score for me. Like if like in my mind, if I'm going through, like if I'm running through a city with an M16, like looking for survivors and supplies, like that's the music that's going on in my head is do 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 do. But yeah, I've always been a huge fan of that score. It's unfortunate that Harrison and Romero really didn't work together, after Day of the Dead. Really, this was
Harrison went on to direct a lot of the Tales from the Dark Side episodes, and a lot of his are really good. Like he did the one with Jerry Stiller, where I think Gornick actually had a part of that too, and George wrote it. I'm sorry, that wouldn't have been John Harrison, but John Harrison did a bunch of really good Dark Sides, and then he ends up doing the Tales from the Dark Side, the movie. So I know you're like that was a big movie like that made you a fan. No, it is a shame they never worked again, or I guess as much again. Did they ever work again at all?
I don't think so. Wow. I mean, outside of George wrote wrote the screenplay for Cat from Hell that they used in Tales from the Dark Side of the movie. But yeah, I don't, unless I'm wrong, anybody in the comments wants to correct me. I don't think that Harrison had I think he had a cameo in Diary of the Dead, but outside of that, yeah, they really didn't.
And I know John Harrison came back to do they do the show, Creep Show, now on Shudder. He directed a lot of those, like almost half of them. I feel like are John Harrison, so he's still doing things. So I'm a big fan. I would have liked to have met him maybe someday.
Yeah, I was hoping that he would make it to the Living Dead weekend this year, because it's creep show related and whatnot. But I don't guess he's going to be there. But yeah, when I met him, he was super, super cool. I think you'd really love meeting him. I mean, he's very funny and open and just laid back, normal kind of guy. But yeah, just in terms of his work overall, I mean, it's like his soundtrack stuff. I mean, Creepshow and Day of the Dead, I mean, are just like two back-to-back great scores. But yeah, I think after the Day of the Dead score, he kind of focused more on directing and going and doing the Tales from the Dark Side TV series and the movie, and he did the Dune series. What was that, like the 90s? That was. I'm not a
think so
huge aficionado of Dune or anything, but yeah, I just always heard the polar opposite opinions on the Day sound. Some people hate it, some people love it. Yeah, I kind of fall in the category of where I'm a pretty big fan of it.
Same here. Yeah, I love the score. I don't see how you could really hate it, but I don't know.
I think a lot of what people talk about is like the tropical theme just kind of throws them off. It just feels weird, out of place for some people, but
Fair
it's
enough.
never bothered me. Stugas ask, can anyone visit the mine from Day of the Dead? Used to be able to. There's some videos on YouTube that I've seen of people touring the mine. It's still there. It's still pretty much a giant storage facility. Last I heard, but I hear it's under pretty tight wraps, and they don't really allow people to visit or tour it anymore. I feel like I've heard they're pretty uptight about that. So that's another location I've never visited. Uncle Bill says it's a great score, instantly recognizable. It's nowhere near as good as the Goblin score for Dawn. That score drives that whole movie. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I'm totally Goblin all the way in that that argument. The Day's score grew on me, but the Caribbean vibes based on the original script makes it odd, except for the Jamaican guy. Yeah, that's true. There is, the Jamaican guy. I guess you can kind of make sense a little bit. Paul Mallinson, what's up, man? Good to have you in here. I love Harrison's score. It's iconic. I agree. I think it is. But both of those, Day of the Dead, Creepshow, both two iconic horror scores.
Totally.
Mayor says Claudio Simonetti's Goblin are doing 3 concerts. Yeah, we were talking about that earlier, playing the entire score, Dawn of the Dead. And Fabio Frizzi is touring a zombie score concert. That'd be cool to see too. See Fabio live. Yeah, I wish I could go to both of them too, but the fucking Goblin's only playing three shows here in the States so far. They may add some, I'm not sure, but Sin says this Creepshow score is way better, but all are good. Effects score is very minimal, but cool. I agree. Have you heard have you ever seen Effects?
Oh, dude, I tried. I couldn't get through it. I thought it was Same with I can't believe, like, I saw a couple people recently on Facebook putting over Midnight. I'm like, what? Like, I don't know. That movie's horrible.
I'm not saying it's good, but for John Russo, it's a masterpiece. Like, there's something about it. I mean, watching it, like, it's objectively, it's not a great movie, but for some reason, there's something about it that I'm attracted to.
Well, let me ask you this: do you like? Because I couldn't even get through Effects. I literally could not get through Effects. I thought it was so cheap and poorly made that I turned it off.
I fucking love Effects. I love Effects, man. I love just the concept. It feels, like I said, I totally understand it. It's not for everybody, but to me, it just feels like an old, low budget, like A24 film from the late 70s or something like that. It's just so out there and so.
No wonder I don't like it.
Yeah, you don't like Hereditary, so
I'm a Hereditator. Uncle Bill called me a Hereditator.
Come on, man. But yeah, it's such a weird movie. I mean, there's a reason that movie was kind of lost for so many years. It's not a very marketable type of movie, but I love John Harrison's performance in it. His score, I think you can hear kind of the seeds for the Creepshow score in that, kind of the doodle din din.
You reviewed that from like Vinegar Syndrome, put that out, right?
Yeah, it was a
partner label.
Yeah, it was like a partner label that did it through Vinegar Syndrome. They did a 4K of it. I don't know why they needed to do a 4K of it, but either way, I enjoy
the demand to see Effects in 4K.
But hey, that's Vinegar Syndrome's bread and butter right there, is taking these movies that have no business being in 4K, put them in 4K, and yeah, what the hell. Let's see. Paul says, I'm not usually a huge fan of synth soundtracks, but the Day score really hits the nail on the head for me. It's optimistic at times, dread at times, and has some great bookends. It's a good way to put it.
Sure.
That song's cheesy. Yeah, it is a very cheesy song. There's 2 songs on the end there. One wasn't used in the film. I can't remember what it is off the top of my head, but it's like, yeah, I can't remember how it goes. I'm not going to sing it anyway. I'll save you guys. Rick says Don Califka played the best character in the as the embalmer Ernie. Yeah,
rabbit weasels. That's my favorite line of the whole movie. They're rabbit weasels, Ernie.
What a great cast that was too. We'll talk about the cast for Day of the Dead here in a second, but Return of the Living Dead, what a great cast.
Yeah.
Let's see. I'm trying to catch up on some of these. Try to stick to the Day of the Dead topics here. Stuka says, anyone seen the Day of the Dead TV show worth watching? No.
I'm not that brave.
I'm just gonna go out on a limb and say it's probably not worth watching. I watched the trailer for it. It looks like complete dog shit.
It might be better than Day of the Dead 2 Contagion, but then again, what isn't?
Yeah, that's true. Man, that's the thing too. We could talk about is kind of Taurus Entertainment's pimping out of the name.
The Doodlesons.
Yeah, the Doodlesons. Of course, they did Day of the Dead 2 Contagion. They did Day of the Dead, the remake, Day of the Dead. What was the other? It was like Day of the Dead
Bloodline, Day of the Dead Bloodline.
Which is like the most common sequel title for anything. If you just name something and then just at the input Bloodline, and it's like, oh, okay, I guess.
And anything with that is always cursed, like Hellraiser 4, fucking horrible movie.
Pet Cemetery
Bloodlines, dude. Yeah, like, and now there's a Final Destination Bloodlines. Like, when are they gonna learn their goddamn lesson? That's like worse than going into space. If you put
the only time the name Bloodline works is the current Bloodline storyline in WWE. Like, it's the only time that has ever worked in film history, I think.
Yeah, the big
yeah. Since I made a steel drum track a few weeks ago for a water theme, so it can come out of nowhere. Yeah, that damn steel drum can come out of nowhere. Uncle Bill says, "Don't get me started on Midnight." You're not a Midnight fan. I know CK was one that was kind of like, oh, I kind of like Midnight because I'd kind of avoided watching it for so long, but at this point, I
thought they made fun of it. I thought back in the day when they interviewed John Amplis. I remember John Amplis was like, "Fuck."
Oh yeah. John Amplis is not the biggest proponent of Midnight. If you ask him about it, he's just kind of like, yeah, I guess I was in that, I guess. But yeah, CK, I've heard CK in the past talk about like, oh yeah, John Russo, a lot of his movies are shit, but Midnight is okay. It's not that bad.
Okay.
But yeah. Debo Squatch, what's up? Good to have you in here. Paul Mallinson, the two Dune TV series were 2000 and I think 2003. They were both produced by Richard Rubenstein, thus the connection to Harrison. Okay. Yeah, Harrison kind of went with... so kind of when George split off from Laurel and Richard Rubenstein, George went off one way. Harrison kind of stuck with Rubenstein and kind of worked with Rubenstein through that period there for like Tales from the Dark Side, the movie, and Tales from the Dark Side, the series and stuff like that. Gornick, the same thing. So yeah, that's one interesting aspect of Day of the Dead that we were talking about earlier, is how it is kind of the end of an era for that Laurel group, the Rubenstein, Romero, Gornick, those types, and they kind of split off and into their own things. Yeah, I don't know. There's not much of a question here.
It was sort of it for Savini too. Like Savini, this is his best. I think Savini has done so much great work, but I always considered this to be his best work as a special makeup effects guy. Like Friday the 13th Part 4 is great from special makeup. It's like he got better with each movie, and then he really peaked here. And then that was really it. I mean, there's not much after this, to run home about. Did he work a little bit with George on Monkey Shines, but I don't know if he did the special makeup effects exactly.
Yeah, he was involved in Monkey Shines. He worked with George, Two Evil Eyes, of course. I think is some of his best work, underrated. Some of his most underrated work was in Two Evil Eyes, I think, which is not a film that I love by any means, but I think Savini's effects in it are pretty damn good. He worked with George on Two Evil Eyes, and I think that's it.
Yeah,
in terms of effects work. So yeah, this was kind of Savini's. To me, this is Savini's peak in terms of his effects work. Like as you said, like you could see him progressing and getting better with every movie that he did over the years. I mean, all those slasher films and stuff that he did in the early '80s. Day of the Dead is, to me, his magnum opus.
It is.
But I mean, at the same time, you also got to give credit to his crew at the time, because it was an all-star fucking crew that worked on that. We're talking Greg Nicotero, Howard Berger, John Vulich.
Nicotero's even in Day of the Dead as one of the soldiers.
Yeah. I mean, this is where all those guys kind of got their start. Mike Tersick, who else? I mean, Mike Deek. I mean, all these people that went off and created K&B and Optic Nerve and just kind of took the ball from Savini, where Savini was at that time period, and kind of took it into the 90s and beyond. I mean, Jesus Christ, K&B. I mean, name a movie and they had something to do with they had something to do with it.
So true. Yeah, what they did K&B wasn't, I think Intruder was the first movie they did as K&B, and then
Yeah, Intruder,
Creepshow
Creepshow
2.
2.
Yep.
Creepshow 2 is an interesting one because they were kind of hired on by Gornick because Gornick trusted them. The guy that was actually in charge of the effects of Creepshow 2 originally ended up getting fired because Gornick was just like, get the fuck out of here. I got Nicotero and Berger and they'll handle this pretty much. It's pretty much the way it went. So that kind of gave Berger and Nicotero the confidence to kind of go on to do Evil Dead 2 and all that after that. So yeah, I thought that was an interesting. I can't remember the name. The guy's name is like Ed French, I think, was the original guy that was was in charge of the effects on Creepshow 2 originally, and then over time, Gornick was just like, these two guys, Nicotero and Berger, are just, we don't need you anymore, Ed. Thank you. So I just think, but yeah, just it's all-star group of guys there, and of course they were all kind of getting their start under Savini, so they were all learning under the Savini tree during that time period. But I still say it to this day, like I'll swear by it. In terms of like practical effects, Day of the Dead is still probably the cream of the crop, the best, even compared to practical effects today. It holds up. It still looks amazing.
I would agree with that. I know probably a lot of people point to like John Carpenter's The Thing and the Rob Bottin effects, but like I think for special makeup effects in a movie, I'm going with this movie. Like there's no doubt. Like this is, to me, it is the magnum opus of practical special makeup effects. Just all of it still looks fantastic, and we're talking what, almost 40 years later. We're 39 years later, and it's still like perfect. I mean, it's just incredible. It's so, and it's such I will say, if there's one thing this movie does improve over Dawn, it is the effects. Like, and as much as I love Dawn and that the effects go with that, the Crayola blood and all that, it goes with that movie. This movie is definitely, if you want good spectral makeup effects, it's the superior film in that regard.
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, and like we were saying, Savini was at his peak at this time. The budget was bigger. They had more prep time, whereas Dawn of the Dead was kind of Savini figuring this shit out on the fly.
On the day, yeah. All right.
And so, yeah, but the thing that I noticed a lot about, so I know this movie's not out in 4K yet. We haven't seen it in 4K. But the true test, is a lot of the older films when it comes to practical effects, when you watch them in high definition, you kind of see through it a little bit sometimes. And I noticed that watching The Thing, like as great as The Thing is and as great as the effects in The Thing are, watching it in HD, you can kind of see, like that's the issue to me. Like watching movies, like watching old movies on VHS, it works perfectly because it's, the format. You can't see through it basically. But when you upscale the films in HD over the years, you kind of start to see like, okay, I can see where the makeup ends and and all that. But watching Day of the Dead, even today, watching it, I was watching the Scream Factory Blu-ray. You can't see through the effects, like hardly at all. I mean, some of the makeup, like because some of the zombie masks that they had and some of the backgrounds and stuff, like some of those you can kind of see, like, okay, yeah. But in terms of like the bites or the gunshots or people getting torn up, like to me, the best effect in the whole movie is the one where Rickles gets this fucking eyelid torn off up through like his forehead. Like still to this day, I'm just like, God, that looks so good and so effective. And it's just like, so like it holds up even to the scrutiny of high definition, which a lot of films from back in the day, and I love practical effects, and that I much prefer seeing that than CGI 100 days, 100 times out of 100. But a lot of those will kind of, you can kind of see through them when you see them in HD, whereas a lot of the effects in Day of the Dead, they still hold up even in HD. It's incredible. Debo says the original script for Day was nothing like the movie George made. Yeah, it was much bigger. We were talking about that earlier. AGFA, the American Genre Film Association, maybe something like that. Yeah, they did the effects release. Larry says, I've never understood the confusion or hate about the Day soundtrack. The movie takes place in Florida, true, so it has that music since it takes place in a tropical setting. I love it. Yeah, makes sense. And I think people kind of forget that it takes place in Florida too, because it was shot, the mine and stuff shot in Pittsburgh, but it is supposed to take place in Florida, which is where George was living at the time too. Let's see. Devo says, I have a rare copy of Day of the Dead George wanted to make where the military was training hordes of dead to hunt other dead. It was done right. Yeah. You talk about the script. Yeah, the script's out there. I think you can download it somewhere and read it. I read it years and years ago. I read it multiple times since then.
I read it when I was in school. I had like an out period, and I was like, "Oh, but I'm just going to read Day of the Dead today."
I think I probably did too. I like sitting in class one day on computer. I remember for sure I read the George's Resident Evil script in class one day. I do remember that.
I was shocked when the other stream you were like, "Yeah, I used to skip class." I was like, "Alpha, no!" Like I was so shocked by that. I don't know why, but I was like.
Hey, I was a horrible student. I just I was, like I mentioned, we were talking about Mark Borchardt from American Movie, and he's like, I dropped out of high school because I didn't learn nothing there, man. And I'm like, yeah, I feel you. I didn't learn anything there. Now we got a bunch of Bloodline sequels. We got Napoleon Dynamite 2, Bloodlines. That's coming soon. I'm sure.
See that.
Uncle Bill says, "What's that you say? Hellraiser Bloodline is horrible. Heresy. Are you a Hellraiser Bloodline fan?" Uncle Bill, that's interesting. I didn't know that.
That's shocking if that's true. I hate that movie.
I don't even know if I've seen that, or if I have, it's been not since it came out.
It's an Alan Smithy movie. That's all you really need to know.
I don't remember. A lot of those Hellraiser movies kind of run together for me. Like
after
I'm not even
number 3. I can't even. They're all bad. Like I don't think there's a single good one after the third one. Yeah, and people even hate the third one. So yeah, I don't know. The first two I really love. And then after that, it gets a little dicey.
I have vivid memories of watching it when I was a kid. Like when I was a little kid, my dad, would come home from work and I'd get up and we'd watch Hellraiser together, which is probably why I'm fucked up now. But yeah, a lot of those after 3, I couldn't tell you a dick all about.
Okay, that's a good thing.
Speaking of Laurel, what was the name? Was that in the same Latent Image office building in Pittsburgh? Yeah. Those are the 247 Pitt Boulevard was the home of the Latent Image, and that's pretty much the offices where George worked until Day of the Dead. Like that was kind of the end before George moved to Florida, and that's kind of where they split off. Because I know that Gornick has talked about it may be in that Day of the Dead, the Making a Day of the Dead book from Lee Carr, where Gornick was talking about how his and George's relationship was kind of rocky and that kind of split right around the time of Day of the Dead, how they were kind of butting heads a lot during that time. And Gornick remembered the moment that he kind of realized that it was over. His working relationship with George was the moment that George kind of left town and moved to Florida without saying, stopping by 247 Pitt Boulevard to say bye to him or Vince Stravinsky and the guys that had worked with him for all those years. So yeah, that's kind of where all that took place for many, many, many years. That's also the rooftop from Dawn of the Dead, where, the SWAT team's breaking into the tenement. That rooftop is there, and the basement from Night of the Living Dead is in that same building as well. So, Mayor, I want to see a Midnight Reservoir Dogs mashup so we can learn more about Lawrence Tierney's character from both films. That would be interesting. That's another aspect of Midnight that I enjoy, was Lawrence Tierney's weird performance.
Yeah, no, he's also in a great Dark Side episode where it's like an Exorcist spoof, which I hope if you do watch it, please let me know what you think when you get there, because that's it's him and Phyllis Stiller and they're like Exorcist specials. It's so funny, man.
That sounds great, actually.
It is.
Since this Creepshow 2 is fun, but the animation was not good. Yeah, the animation was kind of cheap Saturday morning cartoon.
It's like Fat Albert, it looked like.
Yeah.
It's the Fat Albert animation.
Ed French did great effects on the Dark Side show. Okay, so he worked on the Dark Side show as well. But yeah, I know Ed French kind of got... I can't remember if he just got fed up and quit because Gornick was putting Nicotero and Berger in charge, or if it was on this documentary on that Creepshow 2 DVD back in the day. It's been so long since I watched, I can't remember. But yeah, Ed French and Gornick butted heads, and Gornick pretty much stuck by Nicotero and Berger at the end of the day. Mayor says, I picture that his cop character actually survived the end of Midnight, and he changed his name to Joe Cam. Became a criminal boss, then met his true fate. Yeah, that makes sense. Uh, Angelique. That's all I'm saying.
Ah,
Angelique.
okay.
Um, there we go. Weekend at Bernie's 3 Bloodlines. That's coming soon.
There you go.
Rick the North Korean Love. The actress Lori Cardell did an excellent job as Dr.
Hell
Sarah
yeah.
Bauman, though. Tough, beautiful, and very human. Yeah, I agree. Lori Cardell. I mean, she actually won an award, Best Actress. So I think it was I can't remember what country it is, what country it was from, but she won an actually won some awards for her performance in Day of the Dead. It was a Saturn Award, I believe, because I think Savini won it for the effects that year too. But he brings up performances. Lori Cardille as Sarah. I mean, Joe Pilato as Captain Rose. I think just iconic. What else can you say about Howard Sherman as Bub? I mean, just taking that performance or taking that character of Bub, which is a zombie, and kind of making him the most sympathetic and likable character in the entire movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's insane. What are your thoughts about the casting overall? Were there any characters that you felt were miscast, or do you think everything was kind of perfectly placed? Like, my one gripe, I feel like John Amplis. I love John Amplis, but I feel like his performance as Fisher in Day of the Dead just was kind of, middle of the road. Like, I didn't. It was just kind of like nothing special or really that memorable about it. But other than that, I mean, everybody else was pretty perfectly cast, in my opinion. What are your thoughts?
I would agree. Actually, the last time I saw this was in the theater. I saw it like a month ago in the theater I had never seen it in the
Oh
theater.
yeah.
It was so cool. But like the thing I kept wondering to myself the whole time is like, how did most of these people not really go on to do that much stuff? Because it's such a great ensemble. Like, and you mentioned a lot of people already. I mean, Joe Pilato probably gives the best performance of his career in this. And with the Napoleon complex and talk about martial law, and I'm running this monkey farm now, Frankenstein, and I want to know what the fuck you're doing with my time. And
One of probably the most quotable character in any Romero film, period.
yeah, like, steal, shoot that woman, bang, you're dead. Like, it's arguably one of the most quotable movies for me. Like, it's just such an easy to quote film. And like, even everybody, like, I love Terry Alexander with the Jamaican accent. We got to be soaking up in some sunshine, Sarah. I mean, it is so. I love the over the topness to it. It's such it really does, like I was saying before, it feels like a play. Like, it just all these people. And I know Lori Cadell, she was the daughter of Chili Billy and Chiller Theater, who also was in Night of the Living Dead. So it's so cool to kind of see something. By the third movie, she's the lead, and it was cool to see a female lead. And because of course you have Dwayne Jones, you have I would probably say Ken Foree is the lead of Dawn of the Dead, even though the four of them are kind of like the ensemble lead. She's the lead of this. She's the undoubted lead, and I thought she did a really good job. She's strong. She's not like overpowered. She shows weakness. She breaks down at times. She has the loving, like, she kind of has the love interest in Miguel, although we don't really see any of that because he's just so fried. And I always thought Anthony, what's his damn name?
Anthony DeLeo.
Anthony DeLeo. I thought his performance was incredible. Like, he's just so fucking burnt out, and it's portrayed really well. Gary Clark is a bunch of fun. You almost killed Rickles. You almost fucking killed Rickles. Like, I think the cast couldn't be better, really. Now, do you know any background on any, like, were they all? It feels like they were all just like local Pittsburgh stage actors, do you have any more information on like where they came from, like their origins? Because I wouldn't know, to be honest.
Well, I know George. Of course, I think George knew of Lori from, of course, she was Chili Billy's daughter or whatnot. But George saw her in a play called Breathless, and kind of immediately was just like, "That's Sarah. Like, I want her because her performance." The rest, I think a lot of them are just casting. I mean, of course, Joe Pilato had worked with George in the past. He was, had a small role in Dawn of the Dead, had the small part in Knight Rider. So, I mean, and of course, he was in effects as well. So Pilato was a local actor in the Pittsburgh area. Jarlath and Terry, I'm not sure. I don't really know a lot about what they did beforehand. I know that Jarlath and Howard Sherman, Terry's done some stuff, but I see Jarlath and Howard Sherman in commercials and shit all the time now.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
crazy. Like,
definitely Howard Sherman. I see Howard Sherman
yeah,
in any commercial. That's true.
yeah. Of
Hey,
course,
Bob.
Angeles.
Hey, Bob. Come on, Bob.
Gary Clark was a theater actor. I know he was in a play or something with uh fuck, what's his name from All in the Family?
Archie Bunker.
Yeah, Carol O'Connor, I think is
Yeah,
his
Carol
name.
O'Connor.
So yeah, he was a stage actor. Outside of that, I mean, of course, Tasso
Yeah.
as Torres. I mean, Tasso had worked with George for since Dawn. I think he would. I don't think he had anything to do with Martin. Um, but yeah, for the most part, I mean, again, it was just a lot of local theater actors, and that was the thing. I think George, to me, George, when he made Creepshow, it was the first time that George was kind of working with a budget and working with a big, a cast of names, Leslie Nielsen and E.G. Marshall and those types. And I feel like when he was able to do that with Creepshow, I think a huge weight was kind of lifted off his shoulders and kind of freed his mind up to say, "Oh, I can work with a budget. I can work with name actors. I can, And I felt like that was part of the what he was hoping for. A bigger budget was maybe to work with some more name actors for Day of the Dead, because he'd kind of felt like, oh, I can do this. So I think that was also one of the positive aspects of the lower, going from a $7 million budget to a $3 million budget, was that it kind of made him cast locally again, which to me is one of my all-time favorite aspects of George and his filmmaking, is that he had a tendency to cast not, unnamed or unknown actors, pretty much, like not huge Hollywood stars.
Yeah, they were like blue collar, and also it's like it's not with this one at least too. It's not like he went to a diner and casted half of his main cast. Like that's always the big thing with Dawn. But like these people were actually stagely trained actors, and
Yeah.
yeah, I agree. Once you got the name actors, by the time you get to Land, I don't care for any of them. I don't care for Simon Baker or John Leguizamo. It just they didn't fit. It just
I
didn't
do.
work.
I do like Ozzy Argento though.
Oh, of course. She's the best thing in that movie, probably.
I do love some Ozzy Argento,
Me too.
um, but yeah, that was kind of the like when I first saw Land and started, like, back when Land was coming out, and I was reading a lot of the reviews and stuff, and you'd go to the websites and see like all the upcoming, like the breaking news and stuff, because this was before Twitter and shit. Um, so when I first saw, like, oh, Dennis Hopper, I love Dennis Hopper. I love him as an actor, but he's kind of that's not what I want from a Romero film. I don't need a bunch of big names.
He
John
was miscast.
Leguizamo, yeah, John Leguizamo is another big one. That was just like, really, fucking Luigi? You putting Luigi in this fucking thing? Like, so like that's one thing I love about the casting and of Day of the Dead. All those characters are so iconic. The performances are great, and a lot of people. That was one of the big criticisms of the movie back when it came out, was there was a lot of people saying like, oh, it's a lot of overacting, like a lot of over the top overacting. And I could see that, but when you put it in the perspective, like when you put it in the world that the movie has taken place, these people would be over the top fucking out of their minds at this point. They're literally like some of the only people left on Earth and living in a cave. I'd probably be over the top too. I'd probably would be kind of like Captain Rhodes at this point.
Yeah.
What do you think about this? Did you feel like there was any kind of, do you feel like there's some overacting going on at times? Like, definitely you could point to like Captain Rhodes, like Pilato's performance, but I think that's what makes it work. That's what makes it so memorable.
I agree. You took the words out of my mouth. That's what makes Day of the Dead Day of the Dead. It is over the top. It is like, all these people shouting their performances. Yeah, that's what it is. I think that's what makes it work. Like I would say the acting's a lot better here than it is in Night of Living Dead. Night of Living Dead is a lot more like, you see these people are so fucking green. These people, are just giving it their all, and some people might say that's overdoing it, but I think it's better than underdoing it or doing it poorly. I'll take overacting. And I don't know, like for a movie with overacting, I remember almost all the lines. Like you made me memorize the lines, so it has to say something. I think the dialogue is on point. I love that. I do think the one thing I will say about this, I do think the cursing is a little, even though I'm one, you know, I curse like a sailor, the cursing is a little bit much in this. Like even the first, I was like, wow, this is like crazy with the cursing.
But at the same time, you can justify that by saying like these people are out of their minds, living in a cave, fucking into the world. Like, yeah, I'd probably just be like, fucking fuck all this fucking
I
shit.
ain't getting paid enough to do this. I ain't getting paid at all.
I'm like, I'll have to quit drinking all the fucking booze still because there won't be fucking any of it fucking left. Like when you sent me that earlier, I'd fucking cracked up.
That line kills me. He's just like up in arms as he's pouring it into his flat. Like fuck you.
Yeah,
I love that shit, man.
But yeah, I think it's great. Like, yeah, at times it does feel a little over the top, but at the same time, you got to put it in perspective. It's like these people are fucking losing their minds. But that's why I also think like these people are all out losing their minds and all out of it. That I think that Howard Sherman's performance as Bub in this movie is phenomenal. It takes the monster carry. It feels like, and it's kind of funny because Richard Liberty's character, they call him Frankenstein. It feels like the Bub character. It feels like Karloff. It feels like Frankenstein's monster. He's the monster. He eats human flesh, but you kind of feel for him. You care for him. He's sympathetic.
He even said this himself. He brought the infant-like quality to it.
Yeah.
That I think is the beauty of the performance. Like when he's showing him how to press play or press stop on the music and the record, what I have behind me, like his like looking at the, like, oh, like I can do it too. Just that stuff without saying a word, he said so much. And I think that's the beauty of this performance. It's the simplicity. And while everyone else is dialed up to 11, it's almost like Howard Sherman dialed back to 5 and just fucking nailed this performance. I think it's the best performance in the movie.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's one of the best performances in horror, period, in my opinion. Just, you know, no dialogue outside of, you know, hello, Aunt Alicia, or, you know.
Hey, hello, Alicia.
But for an actor to be covered, you know, almost head to toe in makeup, for that actor to convey so much emotion and so much through that makeup, it gives credit. You got to give credit to Savini and his ability to create a makeup that can be emoted through. Because sometimes you put makeup on, you can't emote, you can't do shit as an actor. But for what Howard Sherman was able to convey through that makeup and become such a sympathetic character and becomes literally the most likable character in the movie as the monster, basically. Yeah, it's up there with Amplas as Martin, and Amplas does the exact same thing as Howard Sherman does. I mean, Amplas takes a character in Martin who's, by all accounts, an evil person who's raping women and stalking them and killing them and drinking their blood and all this shit that, like, on paper you would see and be like, oh, that's a horrible human being, but then you see him in his performance and you're like, oh, I kind of feel for him. He's kind of
somehow, you know, it's gentle. He was gentle, and I think that's why Martin works. And then even this character, like when he sees that they've shot down Logan, he cries and he throws his arms almost like a child would when they're throwing a, you know, I'm crying, I'm throwing a temper tantrum. That's something a kid would do. He made it feel like a child, and that is so hard to do without overdoing it. Instead, I don't know, he just really made it work. Found that happy medium, even with the makeup not, you know, being able to weigh him down. He just nails the performance.
Yeah, and I kind of felt like that's where, going back to Land of the Dead for a second, I kind of felt like that's where Eugene Clark kind of fell short as Big Daddy, was that he wasn't able to kind of portray that same thing, you know, that Howard Sherman was able to do 20 years prior, you know.
I don't know.
I know you're not a huge Land of the Dead fan.
No, I'm not I'm not. That's not at all.
But here's Kenneth Costa. What's up, man? Good to have you in here. Oh. Dawn and Day are elite. Thoughts on Diary and Land? I enjoy both of them. Land of the Dead of the latter three is probably my favorite. I think it works. It feels like a much bigger film than what it has any right to be. But I do enjoy Diary as well. I know you're a fairly big Diary fan. Are you planning on picking up that Steelbook?
I'm kind of confused with that Steelbook because it's like, I don't think, number one, I'm not a fan of the artwork at all. I don't think that's the good looking artwork at all. And it's like, is there new features? It's not a new transfer. It's not a 4K.
From what I've heard, just from the people that I've asked, there's going to be nothing new about it. It's just basically a repackaging, basically.
That's odd. Now, yeah, I'll probably stick with the Blu-ray I have then. If there was like a new documentary, new something, maybe, but I don't know. But I do like the movie. I do think of the last three, it's the one that feels the most George, again, because it's laid back. He's the no-name actors. I will say the acting itself in the movie is probably the biggest problem. Like, he did get no names, but a lot of them aren't the greatest. But I would take them even over the, John Leguizamo and Simon Baker, and I just didn't care for the cast and land. I think that movie's biggest problem actually is the budget, and it's like the fact that it's like, oh, we want him to make like a Dawn of the Dead remake type of movie, and Romero was never going to do that. And I don't know, that movie just never worked for me. It's not a piece of shit or anything. It's just a disappointment. Like the people that went and saw a Day of the Dead and were disappointed, I still feel that way about Land of the Dead. And I don't even think I was 8 years old when Land of the Dead came out. So I wasn't in the whole, the hype of going to see that in the theater, like you probably were.
Oh, I was opening night.
Were you let down when you saw that, or were you stoked about it?
At the time I was trying to talk myself into it more so than I was like, this isn't what I want exactly, but it's not bad. I went and saw it 3 times when it was in theaters, and I liked it more each time, but but yeah, that was just kind of one that I was just desperately wanting to love, but I just never could quite like fall in love with it quite as much as I was hoping to, I guess.
It's understandable. It really is. The survival makes it look a lot better.
Well, I don't think we would be talking about this movie without Pilato and Howard. It's insanely good. Totally agree, Uncle Bill. Paul, is it Howard Sherman or Sherman Howard? That's funny. It's both. Actually, he's listed as a letter on IMDb. It confuses me. Yeah, it's both. It's Howard Sherman and Sherman Howard. He changed it at one point over the years. I don't really know why. I don't know if it had something to do with union SAG or something like that. I really don't know. But yeah, there's both. He goes by both. Either way. Let's see. Since I'm going to try to drive by the Wampum Mine Complex while out there. Not much other day stuff left around out there. Yeah, a lot of the day locations are actually down in Florida, in Fort Myers, actually, which is a trip that I need to make because I haven't been down there, and it's a much easier sell to say, hey, let's go on a family vacation to Florida, as opposed to, hey, let's go on a family vacation to Pittsburgh.
Spend 3 days in a mall. Let's do it.
Yeah. See, the mayor. I read the Bub comic from the Arrow release. Have you seen that? You ever read the Bub comic?
I have not.
Very cool getting backstory on him before it's basically a backstory on Bub before he became a zombie.
Oh,
he was like if I remember correctly, I've read it. I have it up there. He's like an ex-military guy, and he loses his daughter, and all that. It's a piece of fun fan fiction, I guess you can call it. Paul says George did say that Day works as a radio show because his kids used to watch it in the car as he drove, and he used to listen to it. Yeah, I've heard that too. He was the kids would be watching it in the back seat, and George would be listening to it, and he was like, oh yeah, it kind of works as a radio play as well. But that's the thing about Day, it does work. Like, I feel like Day of the Dead would be a perfect Broadway play or something like that.
It would. It really would.
Because so much of it plays out like a stage play. Stuka says, I think Howard Sherman was in The Stand. Was he in The Stand?
I don't remember that at all. Another guy went on to be in the dark side. Same with Laurie Cardell. A lot of them, a lot of the people in this movie go on to be in the dark side movies or dark side shows. So, I mean, I'm sure they must have stayed close with Richard in some way, shape, or form, and Laurel, I guess.
Oh yeah, and funny enough, that's a cast that actually stayed fairly close to each other over the years too. Because I know Laurie and Terry and Jarlath, they still do a lot of stuff together. They were supposed to be in that Night of Living Dead 2 at one point. Yeah, that was just one of those things where it was like, I think somebody was trying to get money to make it, so they did like this teaser trailer to see if they could raise some money for it, and it just never came about.
I think I dreamed that, and then I woke up.
It felt like a fever dream a little bit.
Yeah.
But I know Pilato and Gary Clark were still very, very close friends. I know Gary Clark was good friends with Laurie for many years before he passed away. I know Uncle Bill talked about at like conventions, and Joe Pilato would be sitting there with Gary Clark, and they would just yell fucking lines from Day of the Dead back and forth at each other all day.
That's awesome.
That cast stayed fairly close through all these years, still to this day. Because I think they at one point there were some issues with like they were trying to get, I can't remember the exact what was going on, but they had a gripe against Richard Rubenstein, of course, at one point for like royalties and shit. So they all kind of banded together during that period too. Let's see. Is this the shit that's supposed to knock our socks off?
You've given us a mouthful of Greek salad.
I use that all the time. I use that term all the time. When my fiance is trying to explain something to me, I'll tell her, like, you just said a mouthful of Greek salad. Formulas, equations, a bunch of shit that don't mean a thing. It's infinitely quotable. I don't know.
Yeah. It really is.
Miss C, what's up? Good to have you in here.
Hey, Miss
Ciao,
C.
Grande and Alpha. I'm late. Got distracted watching a movie. What were you watching? Anything good? Or something we should avoid? Let us know. So we got a lot of back and forth here about Howard Sherman. According to IMDb, his birth name was Sherman Howard. His ex-wife is Jeanette Sherman. Just trying to clear it up. Okay.
Is she now Jeanette Howard?
Yeah. She took back her original name. Rick, good to have you. Good to see you in here, man. Take care. Glad you were able to stop by. Paul says, when I first saw Day, I rented it on VHS from a local video store. I was 16 in 1985, and I remember the video store owner telling me that he liked the film, but that there was too much swearing in it. So there you go. Yeah, definitely not a movie you want to watch with grandma.
No, definitely
not. Since says the real Frankenstein's monster had such heavy primitive makeup on, his acting had to be stiff. That's true. Stu says he was in 9th grade when Land came out. Yeah, I was 16. Yeah, Land came out right in that summer where I first got my license and first had my first car and had my first job. I remember that summer very clearly.
I was half your age at that. I would have been 8 when that came out.
Oh, children.
Children shouldn't play with dead things.
You kids. Johnny Latham, what's up, man? Good to have you here. It's 5 a.m. in Scotland. Good morning.
Hell yeah.
Woke up actually catching your live stream. I'm glad you're able to catch it, man. Have you a cup of coffee and is there food? That's a great line too from fucking Richard Liberty. Excuse me. That's perfect. I love that back and forth there between Richard Liberty and Joe Pilato. It's just kind of like the battle between the two, where Pilato's like on losing his mind, on the verge of like killing everybody there, and Richard Liberty's just like, sorry I'm late. I got caught up with something. Is there food?
Richard Liberty is so good in this too. Like and I know that of course he was in the Crazies before this, and he had, a kind of disturbing role in that as the guy who was a little too close for comfort with his own daughter, played by Lynn Lowry. And then here it's like, when it starts, you're like, okay, I love this guy. But he's kind of doing some immoral shit too. It's like, oh man, like he's really good in the movie. He's another one of those guys that he passed so like prematurely to all this convention stuff. I mean, what did he die? The year 2000, somewhere around there?
Early 2000s, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't even know if they were doing conventions. I couldn't even tell you. I don't know. I would have been like 3.
I want to say he was maybe at a few, if I remember correctly. But yeah, this was before like conventions blew up to be, kind of what they are now. You know? He would have been huge now. But yeah, that was a guy I never got a chance to meet and would have loved to have just love to have met him just for Day of the Dead and the Crazies.
Sure.
But okay. Let's do something fun. You want to look at some posters?
Hell yeah, let's do it.
This is something I had planned. We're gonna
fly us to the promised land, Johnny.
Let's see. All right, let me get these pulled up here. So yeah, I looked up some different promotional movie posters for Day of the Dead from around the world. We're going to go through, look at these, and we're going to rank them on a tier list because people love tier lists on YouTube.
I actually have that bad boy in my basement.
Yeah, this is the original US poster release.
Oh, we rating this? What do we do, out of like 10, or are we doing like out of like skulls? Are we doing anything like that with this?
Let me see if I can pull this up here real quick. All right. So here we go.
Oh, cool.
I got a tier list here. I've been working on this. So we got 3 categories for these posters. Hang it in the Louvre. which is masterwork of art. Middle, I'd check it out. Like if you were in a movie theater and you saw this poster hanging up before, I'd check that out. That looks interesting. And then of course at the bottom, what the hell is this? So yeah. So this is the first one. This is the U.S. Original theatrical poster. The artist is Bill Spuak, I believe is how you pronounce his name. What are your thoughts on this poster? I like it. It's okay. I like the colors of it. I think it's, to me, my biggest issue with this version of the poster is it kind of like the zombie art on the side here, like in the middle. It kind of makes it look like it's a mummy movie or something. You know what I'm saying? Like it looks really sandy and like deserty in a way.
Egyptian. It's Egyptian. Yeah. I mean, I think it's a perfect. That's one of my favorite posters ever because I love that it's first there was night, then dawn. Like I love that it acknowledges the other two movies, and then now the darkest day in horror. I think it's a perfect poster. It's one of my. I have the one sheet, so yeah, I'm a huge fan.
That's an original one sheet that I don't own that I'd love to have at some point because I do enjoy it. I do like it. Where would you rank this one on the tier list here?
Top of the top for me.
There we go. Hanging in the Louvre, you say?
I would say so, sure.
Oh god, because it is a very iconic poster. So we'll hang that one in the Louvre.
Okay.
So then that next poster, of course, this is the VHS home video poster, art by Joe. How do you pronounce this? Joe Kyoto, one of my favorite names. This is the guy that came up with this poster artwork. And this is the poster art that scared the living shit out of me when I was 3 years old. So this is already hanging in the Louvre level for me because it's just iconic for me personally. What are your thoughts on this artwork? Are you a fan of this one?
Totally a big fan of this too. I mean, the Anchor Bay DVD that I have is very similar. It's not the same exact shot above. They actually just took like a still from the movie and they replace it with this drawing. But I think it's iconic too. I actually think this fits the movie better.
Yeah.
I don't know, the other one, like if I saw that if I was alive in 1984 and of age and saw that after seeing, I would be like, yo, I can take my money, But this is definitely the home video version that I, remembered with this movie the most. So I would say top of the top two with this one. What is it? Hang it in the Louvre. Hang it in the Louvre. Okay. All right. I'll get it right here. Hang it in the Louvre. I think that's a perfect poster too.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think this fits the movie better than the theatrical poster does. Just Bub on the cover there. This one's an easy one for me, so that's definitely going in the Louvre.
I'm with you.
So this next one's a fun one, an interesting one. This is the French poster.
What the hell?
Yeah, have you ever seen this one before?
I have not. Some of these I'm sure I've never seen. This is bizarre.
Yeah, some of these are weird. This one and the UK poster are very, very similar. They kind of used like just a photo of the masks.
What the fuck is this?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not a big fan of the masks, to be honest with you. The masks kind of look like shit. And Savini has said that, where he's like, "Oh, because the famous photo of George down in the the mine with they took a photo from from the top down and showed all the zombies in those bad like shitty looking masks." I don't understand why they chose to go with just a shot of what it looks like is these masks like on a table behind the scenes somewhere or something. I don't quite get it.
It looks like the fucking, I don't know if you've ever watched Goosebumps, but like it reminds me of the masks in the background of the Haunted Mask episode of fucking Goosebumps. Like,
okay, yeah.
The masks that she didn't pick. And there's a reason she didn't pick them. I would say this is a what the hell is this? That's horrible. Maybe the font is cool and some of the red like trim, but I don't know.
I like the little sticker there on the side that says gore.
Trick special gore.
So that does give it some points. But yeah, the masks, I'm not a big fan of the mask. I'm kind of with you there. We're gonna put this in the
what the hell is that?
Hell is this? Okay.
It fits, man.
And then like I said, it kind of brings us to the UK poster, which is pretty much the same thing.
Oh, they used the original US text, it looks like.
Yeah. So it's got the original font. Again, the masks, I'm not sure why. Although this does kind of work a little better because it's kind of hard to tell that their masks. It could just be faces.
I like that they did the blue on the blue hue on the skin too. Make it more zombified looking. I think this is probably in the middle. I don't know. It's a little bit better.
Yeah, I definitely say it's an upgrade from the French one for sure.
Yeah, they turned chicken shit into chicken salad here.
Yeah, I still those masks.
Yeah, what the hell is that?
Kinda,
one guy's melting. Like, what the heck?
yeah, it's a little funky, but yeah, I'd say it's a step up. So
Check it out.
I'd check it. I mean, yeah, if I came across that at a theater and I was just like, "What the fuck is this?" I'd probably check it. Yeah, I'd check it out. Come on, come on,
come on.
So then it brings us to the Italian poster, which is fairly similar to the U.S. theatrical poster. I kind of like this one better than the U.S. in a way.
I like it. I think it's pretty cool. It's like, I don't know. I'm in the middle with this one, but I think it's okay. It's definitely El Giorno. For some reason, that makes me think of DiGiorno.
Il Giorno.
DiGiorno. Yeah, no, it's cool.
Yeah, I like this one. There's two different colors. There's a red version, which is this one, and there's one in blue as well. But I kind of like it. Again, my biggest gripe is that the zombie in the photo it makes it look like a mummy movie or something. But
I don't know if you got this vibe. It reminds me a little bit of the Dario Argento Inferno poster, a little bit, like with the blue text at the bottom, white exterior, black interior. It's the only thing is missing is that little skull, but instead it's this. Like, I don't know. It looks similar to me.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, I like this poster. I think I'd probably I'd check it out. Like,
yeah, I'd check it out too. I'd say middle of the road.
Yeah, we'll throw that right in the middle of the road there. So then that brings us to the Spanish poster, theatrical poster of El Dia de los Muertos. You didn't know I could speak Spanish, did you?
I didn't know.
I was a bad student, but by God, I paid attention in Spanish class. This one is a weird one. What are your thoughts on this one?
This one looks like a 1990s fucking sci-fi original channel movie. Like, come watch our ripoff, our Spanish ripoff, Day of the Dead. This is terrible. I think this is what the hell is this? Because like the guy in the front barely even looks like a zombie. He looks like he's been like mutated in the sewer or something. Like, no, I don't like him at all. He looks like Crocodile Man.
It's a weird zombie to go. It does kind of look like he's just kind of fucking cropped in there for no reason. I don't know, man. Weird poster.
And even the rest of it, like, what is the top of it's so bland. It looks like something you could have made on your fucking laptop. Like,
yeah,
I don't know. I don't like it at all.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of that one either. It's just, I'm trying to think of what it reminds me of. It just feels like a kid's movie or something. Like he's just kind of peeping in out of the corner, like Sinbad or something in the '90s. I don't know. Yeah, I that one's kind of a what the hell is this?
Yeah, that's a terrible one.
I've never, every time I see that one, like I'll see it on eBay every now and then. I'm just like, nah. I mean, it's fairly cheap too. You can get an original.
Cheap.
You can get an original for $40-$50, and it's just like, I'll pass. I'm good on that one. Now this one's probably my favorite of all of them, and I fucking love Thai movie posters. And this is from Thailand. Something about Thai movie posters, the Dawn one, the Martin one, they all look fucking amazing. And this one, to me, I think is probably my favorite of all the Day of the Dead posters. I just love that artwork. It's so, I don't know, so weird. And the zombie that they went with, of course, that's the zombie in the cave that gets like the fucking machine gun to the face and shit.
Yeah, I like it too. I like that Rhodes is shooting. I think it has a little bit of everything in the movie. That iconic shot of the hands in the very beginning coming out of Laurie Cardell is like such an underrated shot. It's so weird. It doesn't really fit the rest of the movie, but it's such a great way to open it for some reason. Yeah, I think that's awesome. I think that's absolutely. I would hang it up, man.
Yeah, I agree. I'm all for that one. I love Thai posters in general, like I said. So pretty much any poster from Thai.
Are there one sheets of that you could get? Because that's a cool one. That would be one I'd hang in the man cave.
Yeah, they're out there. I've seen. I've had my eye. They're expensive though. I've seen some from Martin, Dawn, and they usually go for a couple $100.
That's no fun.
Nah, it sucks. So yeah, put that one in the Louvre. Now we got a few Japanese posters here.
I like that. That's not bad.
Yeah, the Japanese, the pretty much all the Japanese ones are pretty solid. The weird cropping, of the the different zombies here and there around the poster is a little funky looking, but overall, I dig it.
I think it's funny. It's like red text everywhere, and then at the very bottom, it's Day of the Dead in blue text. That's unique. I like its uniqueness. Like, it's probably an I check it out, but it's teetering for me. I would say I check it out though.
Yeah, I think that's where I'd put it. Which one was it? This one. Put that one in the I check it out. No, second Japanese poster here. I like this one a lot better.
Rickles! You almost fucking killed Rickles.
I do enjoy this one more than the last one.
Dude, for having Rickles on it, fuck yeah. Hang it up. That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's going right before your favorite kill.
This may be the only poster in existence of Day of the Dead that has Rickles on the cover, actually.
Has to be, yeah.
So yeah. What do you say?
I would say hang it up, man. I think that's a cool one.
Yeah, let's hang that one in there. I agree. Got to give Rickles some love. Another guy that passed away way too soon. I think
he died like just a couple. Because me being the nerd I am, when I was leaving the theater, I'm like, what happened to legitimately? What happened to Rickles in real life? Because I don't know anything about him. Never heard a word. And that was actually my first time understanding that he had passed away. Like just a couple years later. I think what was it?
Yeah.
Like he might have died in the 80s. That's how shortly after it was.
It was early 90s, I know for sure. 90s, okay. Yeah, because he was he had that role as the cab driver in Tales from the Dark Side, the movie. If you ever realized the bald, the punk rock guy, cab driver. He died shortly after that movie was done. I think a few months after that movie was filmed.
Was it poor health or was it a car accident? Was it any
car accident?
Car accident. I was gonna say I didn't grab that from I'm thinking that the whole time. I'm like, but did I just make it up? But no, okay, that's what I read. The car accident. Oh man, rest in peace. Too soon.
Yeah, definitely. See the third Japanese poster. This one's kind of a take on the UK.
That's a mess to me.
Yeah,
it looks like somebody threw up.
It looks like somebody ate the UK and the French poster and shit it out.
Yeah, and then threw up blood on it. Yeah,
yeah, mixed it with some hibachi and then shit
some
it out.
Soy sauce.
That's kind of what it looks like to me. Not a big fan of that one. I think that one's what the hell is this category there? And then the final Japanese poster. This is probably my favorite of all of them, to be honest with you, because I love. Of course, hey, it's got Rickles on it too. The Japanese love Rickles.
That's pretty cool. I like it. I'd say like middle of the road one for me.
So you're middle of the road, okay. Yeah, okay. We can do middle of the road.
No, I just love round up. How about round up? Because my camera went out of focus. I'm going to be right back.
Okay. But yeah, I love this one. I love the shot of Lori and Rickles there looking through the middle, and then of course that iconic shot of Captain Rhodes and the hands coming in. So
we can hang it up, no problem.
You want to hang it up?
Oh yeah, hang it up.
All right. Yeah, I think compared to that last one, I think we can put that one.
Well, yeah, fucking compare anything to that last one, man.
To the other Rickles.
Oh, I meant the previous one before the
yeah.
I was gonna say anything looks good compared to that.
Well, I'm just saying we put the Rickles one at in the Louvre.
Hell yeah!
So this one's got it too. So we'll so this is the German version of the poster, Zombie 2. So in Germany, Day of the Dead is actually known as Zombie 2.
Why do I like this?
You like it?
I shouldn't, but I do kind of. I like it. I don't know.
There's something likable about it. I agree.
If you had a guilty pleasure category, this would be the top.
Because there's something kind of cheap about it, because it's just kind of a knockoff of the Dawn poster. But
it looks like fucking Kevin Spacey. Like
it does kind of look like Kevin Spacey peeping out.
Oh no.
We won't go there.
No.
But, it's kind of what it looks like. I don't know, man. What do you think about it?
I think guilty pleasure. I would check it out, I guess.
I think if you saw this, you would have to at least say, yeah, I'll check that out.
Yeah,
If
it's
for
kind of
no other
spacey.
reason, if it's called Zombie 2, if you're in Germany and you're like, "Oh, I remember Zombie 1." Oh, I see it.
German people
But
sound Italian.
yeah, I don't know. Germans are, I
Sieg
guess,
Heil!
yeah. the only the only German I know is Sieg Heil.
Me too. A guten Tag.
Good Tag, that's one, yeah.
Guten Tag, Zombie 2.
Bratwurst.
Die for Tags des Originals.
What is it? Das letzte Kapitel. What the fuck does that mean?
I don't know.
Huh, okay. All right. This is
What the hell is this?
from Turkey.
That's fucking cool, but it's not, doesn't work for this movie at all. Like,
Yeah, I kind of agree. I think it looks cool as shit, but it says nothing about Day of the Dead. Although it is, what zombie is that supposed to be even? It kind of looks more like a Texas Chainsaw Massacre
yeah, or a
poster.
Fulci zombie more so than a Romero zombie.
Yeah,
I love the poster, but I just don't think it works for the movie. So it's like the best.
yeah,
I don't know. It's a what the hell is this for me? Even though it's not in a bad way, it's a cool poster.
yeah. Well, I don't know, man. If you see that poster hanging up at a theater, wouldn't you be like, I might check that out?
I would. Yeah, no, it's true. I would. I'd also be like, what the hell though? Because it's not like if you're telling me there's a Day of the Dead poster, this
Be
is
like
like, I don't know.
a weird, just morbid curiosity of like, what the fuck is this? But
It
then
looks
you
like
see the
like a
movie and you'd be like, this
3D
has nothing to
poster,
do.
like it's
Yeah,
coming through the screen to get you.
yeah. I kind of agree. I think that's a what the hell is this? Because then you'd watch the movie and you'd be like, this has nothing to do with that poster. It just yeah. But
But
it's
good movie.
Turkey. It's Turkey. What else do they got going on?
Nah.
Bless their hearts. Um, couple more here. This is the Belgian poster, which is an interesting poster for the great country of Belgium. I do love that they included Miguel with his open torso spewing out into the floor. I think
Yeah.
that would be a lot to sell the movie for me. Cool badass shot of Captain Rhodes.
This looks
What
like
do
the
you know?
back of a VHS,
Yeah,
like something to be like all it's missing is the description of the movie. Like
yeah, exactly.
I like it though. I think it's okay. I would check it out.
Yeah, I think just because that's one of my favorite effects in the movie too is just the fucking torso when he leans over and the guts and shit fall
It's
out.
so good they used it a few times. Like they were just
Yeah,
like, do it again.
they're just like let's just fucking keep going, keep playing the hits.
Yeah,
So yeah, I think I'd put that and I'd check it out
sure.
just for that alone. I'd be like, what the hell's going on there? But the last one here is probably my favorite of all of them. And this one's definitely going in the Louvre. And this, of course, is the South Korea VHS.
What the fuck? I thought
I
you were
don't know.
serious for a minute. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? Who is this woman?
This is the VHS cover in South Korea for Day of the Dead. I don't know who this woman is or where they got it from, but what is going on in South Korea?
What? That's so funny. And on the back, they have everybody. They
Yeah.
have Terry. They have Lori.
It kind of like the back, the way they got the faces lined up. Do you remember? I don't know if you're old enough to remember the old like Coliseum video tapes of like WWF pay-per-views back in the
That
day.
was before my time. I've seen CK show them before, but I've never had one.
Like on the old Royal Rumble VHS tapes, they would just have like these square boxes with all like close-ups of all the wrestlers that were in the Royal Rumble.
Oh, that's
That's what it
awesome.
reminds me of. It reminds me of an old Coliseum home video tape.
Sin thinks it's Marge Helgenberger. I don't know.
Marge Helgenberger. Who the fuck is Marge Helgenberger?
I think she was on like CSI or one of those shows.
That'd be even more hilarious if like CSI was just a huge show in South Korea and they just started throwing Marge Helgenberger all over everything.
Dude, I love how they threw the
Sell it.
UK or one of the UK posters like on the side in a cube, like
Yeah.
cut it out. That is fucking horrible. That I think this is the worst one by a mile.
Yeah, I had to throw that one in there. I just stumbled across. I was like, "What the fuck is this?" And I think
We have 5 for everything. Look at this.
yeah, that's the epitome of what the hell is this. So that's perfect tier maker right there.
It is, yeah.
Perfect tier list. It's okay. Yeah, I just wanted to go through and show because some of those posters, man. Oh, even for like Dawn of the Dead, any horror movie in general. overseas, some of the posters that they come out with, it's just like, what in the hell is this? Like, they just throw anything together on a poster. So yeah, I missed a lot of comments during that, but I just had to go through there. Okay, Johnny says coffee's on the way. That's good. Paul says it's 5 a.m. where I am in Doncaster. I got up early about an hour ago because I was having nightmares. Oh, well, I'm glad, glad you decided to start your morning. Start your day off with me, sir. McCord says it's 11 p.m. in Alabama. Yeah, it's 11 here, probably past midnight.
His avatar is really cool. It's like Leatherface, I think, from part 3.
Is that
like,
Leatherface from part
I
3?
think so, with the purple. Like, that is one of the coolest avatars I've ever seen.
Yeah, good shit. Are you what's your favorite Chainsaw sequel?
Actually, that one, I would say the third one. I know
Really?
now it's like it's blasphemy. Everyone says part 2. I like part 2 okay, but that movie never clicked with me like it does for other people. I think the third one, I don't know, there's something about it I always just kind of liked more. I guess maybe because it's trying to go back to that serious horror tone, and it does have Ken Foray, and it does have like oh my god, what's his damn name? He was in Green Book and fucking
Viggo Mortensen.
Viggo Mortensen. That's Viggo Mortensen. Like, I love Kate Hodge. Always really liked her. I always liked Texas
William
Chainsaw
Butler.
3. Yeah, William Butler, who wrote some of those bad Return of the Living Dead sequels we were talking about. I don't know. I always liked the third one. How about you, though?
Yeah, I've always been a fan of 3. Like, part 3 was the one that I watched the most when I was younger, because I mean that was 1990. That was my year, coming of age, of year of like all the movies from 1990 I grew up watching. I like part 2. I think the first half of part 2 is damn near perfect. Then it kind of falls apart after that for me. Like when they get to the the underground part, and it's just a lot going on. And
That's a movie where the score, I hate the score of Texas Chainsaw 2. I know people hate me for that, but I hate the score.
I like some of the soundtrack. I love some of the actual music that's on it, but the score itself, it doesn't. It's not the greatest. But my personal favorite sequel is Next Generation.
And wow, I'm probably
alone
like that in a so entertaining way. It's bad, but it's like, what happened, man, with that? I would love to know the behind the scenes of King Hinkle and the fucking cocaine usage on that set. Oh.
Well, I just, to me, it just feels more like the original than any other Chainsaw movie has after. And maybe it's the Kim Hinkle thing, but it just feels more because it had more to do with, it explained so much from the original, like the whole Illuminati thing. Like, yeah, on the surface, when you first watch Next Generation, you're like, oh man, they really came out of left field with all this shit. But then you start thinking about the original and you're like, if you know, like, if you're like, I'm not big into conspiracy theories or anything, but from what I've heard about like the Illuminati and shit, like if you go back and watch the original Texas Chainsaw, you're like, oh, they were kind of hitting around at some of this stuff. Like when Grandpa starts sucking on the finger of the girl and he starts to come alive, like, is that, the adrenochrome aspect? Yeah, I don't know. I feel like Kim Hinkle and Toby Hooper were doing some serious psychedelic drugs back in the 70s, and that was kind of their original idea for Chainsaw.
Oh, when the guy comes in, it looks like fucking Vito Corleone in the Next Generation, and like starts licking Renee Zellweger, and he has all these markings on his body. I'll tell you, there are a few times in my life I laughed so hard. Like, I was like, what in the hell? And Vilmer, get that bitch. Yo. Matthew McConaughey is so fun in it.
McConaughey's great in it.
It's a bad movie, but it's entertainingly bad. I'll take it over the remake. I'll take it over the new one, the Netflix one. I'll take it over a lot of them. So I don't know. That's just me personally, but I don't know if I'd go so far to say the best of the sequels, but it's certainly not even close to being one of the worst. I think it's way more entertaining than a lot of them.
I don't know. I love the writing in it too. I love that they was shot in Texas with real Texas actors, so they had that Texas accent.
Oh, the lady in the purple dress is one of the worst actresses of all time.
Oh, I love her.
You love her? Well, I love her. She was pretty. Like, I know why they casted her, but my God. Oh,
yeah, she's not the greatest actor in the world.
Is he dead? Is he dead? Oh my God. And the guy playing Leatherface I always thought was terrible.
Oh yeah,
Robert Jack.
Robert Jack, yeah.
Horrible. I don't know. I'm iffy on that one. It's definitely entertaining. I'll tell you what, if we ever hang out in person, I would love to watch that with you. I was thinking Knight Riders, but now that'd be fuck. Like,
yeah, we're gonna watch Next Generation, and we're gonna sit down and watch Bride of Chucky, and I'm gonna explain to you why Bride of Chucky is one of the greatest horror sequels of the 90s.
I'm all for it, man. We'll do it. We'll do that. Instead of watching Effects or Midnight, I'll totally give Bride of Chucky another shot.
Yeah, I don't know if I could sell you on Effects or Midnight. I mean, those are just kind of like
you sold me on Vanilla. I'm a lot more positive on Vanilla now.
Yeah, I talked you into finally going back and rewatching Vanilla. I'm glad you did that and came out of it with a different appreciation. But
definitely.
Anyway, I'll get back to some of these comments and we'll get off here in just a moment. I appreciate you coming on tonight, man. This has been a lot of fun.
Thank you for having me. I love shooting the breeze with you.
Johnny says, I like the graphic of the U.S. poster best. I quite like the Spanish one. Oh, really? You do like the Spanish one, that funky one.
I think at some point he's like, never mind. When we carried the Spanish one.
Yeah, I'm pretty far behind here. Let me see. We're talking about, let's see, there's a photo of George Romero on a promo pic. They look like, yeah, that's the one we're talking about. That's my one like autograph photo of George that I have is that photo. Let's see everything. Yeah, Paul says, nah, the Spanish poster is crap. Johnny likes the Japanese posters. I think, yeah, for the most part, they're good, except for the ones that were just pretty much the masks. I think that one, like we said, it kind of looks like shit. Johnny likes the Zombie 2 poster. It looks like Big Daddy. That's interesting.
We went from Kevin Spacey and now it looks like Big Daddy. Very interesting.
Who knew Kevin Spacey and Eugene Clark were spitting images of each other?
Imagine Kevin Spacey in the Big Daddy role.
I think at this point he'd take any role.
Shit, yeah. He'd be, fuck it, I'll be the best zombie ever seen.
See, since it's more like Nightmare City, I think he was talking about, I can't remember which one he was talking about. Nightmare City, that's one I love. That's a great Italian.
Bruno Mattei, right?
Yeah. No, that's Umberto Lenzi.
Oh, that's Lenzi. Okay.
Bruno Mattei is Hell of the Living Dead.
Hell of the Living, yes, that's right.
Which is another Italian classic zombie movie. Stuka says the Turkish one looks like it has Roger on it. Yeah. I'm gonna have to go back and look at
I was gonna say I don't remember that
Turkish one.
You were like, they have nothing better to do in Turkey.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, oh, this is the one with it looks like from Texas Chainsaw with the fucking random zombie reaching through the red background. You know
I don't know. Maybe when I look at it again, maybe he's right. I don't know.
Marge Helgenberger. She was in Species.
Oh, she was the lead, like cop in Species. Okay.
It's been.
I was gonna say I've seen that movie once years ago.
See, Paul says it was a mad sci-fi mecha nightmare. Stu Stuff says, anyone have the Dawn of the Dead action figures? Yeah, I have. Which ones are you talking about? I have the NECA. I got the Living Dead dolls. I got the Japanese cult classic collection action figures.
I'm jealous, man. I don't have any of that. What NECA figures of Dawn do they have?
They got Hare Krishna Zombie. They got Airport Zombie and Flyboy Zombie. Here, hang on. I'll grab them real quick.
Oh, Flyboy Zombie sounds sick. I got to get that. Hare Krishna. Oh, there you go.
I'm back.
Stuka said he only knew about the NECA ones.
Yeah, the NECA ones. These are.
Oh, that's awesome.
Flyboy.
I got to get that.
They're you can find them. They're pretty pricey, $60-$70 now a piece.
It's doable. I could do it.
Hare Krishna Zombie, which is one of the only Hare Krishna things you can buy. Is this figure? It's crazy. You can get all kinds of Airport Zombie and Flyboy Zombies. They look fantastic. They look great.
I was gonna say they look. Yeah, I like the packaging too.
How well you can see those, but yeah, any chance I get to show off the shit that just sits around, nobody cares. I'm gonna take my opportunity to do that.
Oh, you got to.
Yeah, those are the Hare Krishna one I got years and years ago. The other two I just recently finally picked up. But yeah, I got into a big figure collecting mode a couple of years ago. So I got all kinds of different fucking action figures. I got like custom Day of the Dead figures, custom Dawn figures, all kinds of shit. And now I'm just kind of like running out of space for most of this shit. Mm. Paul says, whatever happened to that Nightmare City remake that was supposed to be directed by Savini? I remember giving them crowdfunding money, but nothing came of it. Well, I'm sorry.
They pocketed that shit. Yeah.
Yeah, Savini, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I remember hearing like little rumors and rumbles about that, but I don't think anything ever really came out of that. Savini, there's been rumors about Savini directing all kinds of stuff over the years. It just never came to
He
came to
did
pass.
one of the Creepshow episodes, like one of them. I know.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, he did.
That's another series that I've like stopped in on every now and then to watch an episode here and there, but I've never really delved into. Like,
I liked the first 2 seasons, and then I just fell off. But I couldn't say if like season 3 or 4 bad. I just kind of fell off.
See, Johnny said, I love the soundtrack of Day, pure 80s. Also, the opening scene is epic. Yeah. First time they return to the bunker and go down to the cargo elevator, you see that last glimpse of the clear blue sky. That is a great shot when they're going down. It's kind of like the last bit of daylight we're going to see for quite some time in the movie.
The last bit of day you see in Day of the Dead is the opening 7 minutes.
Yeah. It's an interesting juxtaposition there.
Yeah, for sure.
But all right, we'll go ahead and start wrapping this sucker up, man. I appreciate you coming on. What are your final thoughts? Your where do you think Day fits in the pantheon of Romero's work and the horror genre? Final thoughts. Floor is yours.
For Romero, I guess it's number 4. I would say I'd put Dawn, then Martin, then Creepshow, then this. I would say with the Dead movies, it's Dawn, Day, Night, Diary, Land, Survival. And I'm happy that the movie found an audience. It took a long time. I mean, I just saw the movie in theaters about a month ago. It wasn't terribly crowded. Like, put it this way. For Dawn of the Dead, it was the first sellout that theaters had since the COVID pandemic. For Day of the Dead, it was maybe 25%, 30% full. But still, I mean, I love the movie, always have, always will. I think the acting is fantastic in it, as over the top or whatever that people want to say. It's memorable. I think it's Savini's magnum opus, and it's a movie that I think, again, while Return of the Living Dead was the zombie movie that we needed in the 1980s, I do think this is the superior film, even if by a small margin, because Return of the Living Dead is damn close. I really do believe that movie is damn close. Like, I did a Versus years ago. It actually wasn't maybe about a year ago, where I did these two movies against each other.
I think I remember watching that.
And it was really, I think Day won by a 1 point. So it was really close. That was like right before Living Dead weekend. So I think it's a great movie. So I definitely think it's one of George's. And I would say this too, and I don't know how you feel about this. I do think this is George's last great movie. I think this is the last movie that I would say is like one of George's best. Like the rest of them, there's the ones I like, but I don't think he ever reached this pinnacle again.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think there's that period there from Martin to Day. I mean, I think all those movies are classics. I mean, that was George at his peak.
It was.
He had, the crew was there, the Gornicks and the Rubensteins and everything was there. And this, like I said, yeah, it felt Day always kind of feels like the end of an era because, yeah, he would go on to do, Dark Half and Monkey Shines and all that. And it was still Pittsburgh based, but those just still didn't feel like George to me. Like they're fine movies, are good for what they are. If I wasn't a huge Romero fan, like those movies would be like, oh, these are good horror movies, but they're not great or anything. Just not what I love of George. But yeah, Day is definitely it's George's favorite of his zombie films. It's the one that he likes the most. He thinks, I mean, technically it probably is his best film in terms of the effects, the performances, the whole shebang altogether. Would I have preferred to have seen the original screenplay? That it would have been great to see, but I think pretty much that original screenplay just got chopped up into 2 movies. It basically, that one screenplay became Day of the Dead and then Land of the Dead, because that original screenplay was there's a lot of Land of the Dead in that original screenplay. But for what we got, like I said, the first time I saw it, I didn't get it because I was young and expecting something completely different. But when I gave it a shot, watched it again, I got it, and I love the movie now. It's like I think it's fantastic, and I've said this before, and I think it's the perfect. To me, this makes the most sense. Like, to me, Day of the Dead is for George what The Thing is for John Carpenter. Like, when The Thing came out, it was not a success. People didn't get it because, like, again, it just wasn't. It came out in '82, right in the middle of the slasher craze, and Jason was big, and it was just a completely different type of thing that people really didn't get or were really ready for at the time. I guess it was just Um, but over the years, it has kind of become a lot of people's favorites. I hear it all the time, more and more every year. I hear people say, "Oh, Day of the Dead is my favorite of
I've heard it
Romero's
a lot
zombie
too.
films."
I have too. That's
I
true.
hear it from so many people. It's actually at Living Dead weekend. I think it was last year, maybe year before. It was at one of the VIP parties. Nicotero was there. And I remember seeing, I wasn't there, but I remember hearing about it and seeing pictures of it, or I may have seen a video of it. But he actually there was a group of people there, and, George or Nicotero was like, okay, so everybody who likes Dawn of the Dead the best, stand over here. And everybody who likes Day of the Dead the best, stand over here. And Day of the Dead had more people on its side than Dawn at the Monroeville Mall for Living Dead weekend. So those are like the most hardcore of like dedicated fans. So I think that's interesting. Do I agree with that? No, I still think Dawn is the superior film. I think there's so much more to love about Dawn of the Dead, but at the same time, like, I feel like in this day and age, like, just the zeitgeist of society that we're in now, and just kind of the cynicism that people have now. I feel like Day of the Dead probably works better for people that are seeing it for the first time now than it probably did, like we said, in the '80s, when people were just, "Hey, let's do cocaine and dance to Flock of Seagulls."
Yeah,
Like,
it's
they were
true.
just not in tune with it. So,
Once again,
um,
Romero being a victim of being ahead of his time. Like, it's happened a
yeah,
few times. I think Martin would have been a way bigger movie now than it was then. I
yeah.
totally believe that. I think Martin would have been like a cult figure now if that came out. Like, it really, he might have. Granted, they might have had him sparkle, but
Uh,
thankfully
yeah,
that's not the case.
if they made Martin now, it'd be like Timothy Chalamet or something as
That'd be
God.
fucking horrible.
That's the only actor they put in anything anymore is fucking Timothy Chalamet.
Oh,
But yeah. Johnny says, I hope I get a chance to see Dawn and Day and Night remake at a cinema. I've seen Dawn in the theater. I've seen the Night remake in the theater. I've seen the original Night of the Living Dead in the theater. I've seen every Dead movie except for Day of the Dead in the theater. So I was
you
pretty
saw
jealous of
survival.
them.
You saw survival in the theater.
Oh, no, I did not see Survival of
Oh,
the
I was
Dead
gonna
in the
say,
theater.
wow.
But I did see Diary in the theater. I did see Land in the theater. Um, I guess I forgot Survival because that's one I just wouldn't really care if I saw it in the theater or not.
Yeah,
It'd be
no.
cool, but whatever. Although I did see that I think it's the Mahoning Drive-In next month. I think they're having a zombie-thon where they're playing all of Romero's zombie film. I think like Friday night is Night 90 and something else, I think. But Saturday night's going to be Night, Dawn, Day. Sunday night's going to be Land, Diary, and Survival. So that's pretty fucking cool. I'd love to go there and do
That's
that. But
awesome. That's
no.
really cool. I've actually seen all the ones he said down below. I've seen Night, Dawn, Day, and Night Remake. I've seen all those in the theater. I've not seen Land, Dire, or Survival in a theater.
Larry says, while listening tonight, I put together
Oh,
my mall tour programs for a Living Dead weekend. Awesome. They are ready for printing now. Yeah, once again, guys, if any of you guys are going to the Living Dead weekend for the first time this year, take the tour with Larry. It's completely worth the money. It's a couple hours long, and you're going to see, you'll see parts of the mall that you won't be able to see otherwise. It's fantastic. Uh, Larry says, good show, guys. Thanks a lot, man. I appreciate it.
thank you.
Day is top of my Romero films, says Paul, and also my favorite zombie film of all time. So there you go. Yeah, I hear more and more of that. Johnny says it's his last great movie. Haven't read the original screenplay. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people, you always hear like Savini and Nicotero talk about like, oh, it was the most iconic zombie screenplay. Zombie, it would have been the greatest zombie movie ever made. It was, Raiders of the Lost Ark with zombies. And while I do think there's a lot to like about the screenplay, and of course, depending on how it was filmed and how it would come out in the end, But reading the screenplay, I just felt like there's there were like too much. There's too much going on in that screenplay. There's too many characters. There's too much. There's just too much. I really like the way that George was able to kind of focus it all, kind of the final product that we got, and kind of focus it all down into like uh, not a simpler film, but a more, I don't know what I'm trying to say.
It might have suffered a little bit like Knight Riders. Like, even though I love Knight Riders, it's a 2.5 hour long film. There's a lot going on in it. There's a lot of characters. Like, it might have suffered that same fate of people just kind of tuning out. Unless you had a lot of action and horror and effects, at well paced times. But that's really hard to do in a 2.5 hour movie.
Yeah, totally agree. Yeah, I love Knight Riders too, but yeah, there's a lot. If you're not a huge Romero fan and you just don't get off on seeing everybody that was ever in any Romero film ever in that movie, then yeah, you can it's probably easy to get kind of distracted.
First time I put it to you this way. First time I saw it, I was like, "What the fuck?" Like, I was way too young to appreciate it. Like, I was like, all right. I was like, it wasn't bad, but it was. I do still feel it's too long. I don't think it should be 2.5 hours, but it's a great movie.
I feel like Knight Riders I feel like if George could make his vision every time out, like exactly what he wants a movie to be, it would be Knight Riders over and over and over again. Long and just not marketable in any way. Like,
there's no way to sell that movie. And I know they said too, they had like days worth of footage of that movie too, which is crazy.
Yeah.
Like, I think it was like a 25 hour long movie or something like that. And they cut it down to 2.5, which I'm like, dude,
I want to see the 25 hour long cut of Knight Riders, by God.
Hell yeah.
Let's see. Since I Love the Thing remake when it came out, a perfect movie. Yeah. It just was again like Day of the Dead. Like, it just was not very successful when it came out. It just people weren't.
And now people love it, and some people call that Carpenter's best movie, which I actually do think it is. I think it is John Carpenter's best movie.
Yeah, I mean it's right there with Halloween.
I would put like They Live and shit. Like, there's a lot of Prince of Darkness.
I like They Live a lot. I just watched it again here recently, and it kind of dropped on my scale a little bit. I think, I don't know, something about it just went more. Yeah.
Put the glasses on.
Christine, I watched Christine again here recently, and that one kind of went up on my list.
Even though I know the Carpenter never cared for.
Yeah, Carpenter always hated that fucking movie. He was just like, it was just a job. Yeah, I didn't care. But I'm like, no, I don't know, there's something to it.
Such a good movie.
Stuka says Dawn is superior. I agree, but Paul says to me, Day is the perfect film. There's nothing about it I dislike. Yeah, there's very little about it. I mean, like I said, in the past, when I go through and do like lists of like best zombie, best villain, best hero, best effects, I mean, you can put Day of the Dead right at the top in all of those categories. It's a pretty fantastic.
I don't have any problems with it either. Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything. Not really, no.
Yeah, in terms of Romero's work, I mean, there's just so much of it that works better than anything else he ever really did. A lot about it.
Yeah.
See a lot of discussions back and forth here in the chat, but all right, man. I think we're gonna go ahead and wrap this sucker up, man. I really appreciate you hopping on. Go ahead and promote your channel. Where can people find you? What you got coming up? I know you do a stream every Thursday at what would be 7:05?
7:05 by you, live at 8:05 if you're on the East Coast. But yeah, no, I do Grande's Graveyard, and I've had Alpha on quite a few times. Just had him on recently for the Horror Roundtable. So if you want to see more of me and Alpha interacting, we're on there with a couple of other diehard horror lovers. But yeah, no, I try to keep it as fresh as possible. This coming week, we're actually doing a rare departure from the genre where we'll do a director spotlight on Stanley Kubrick. So I'll count down the top 10 Stanley Kubrick movies, what are, those are in my opinion. And then the following week is Cabin Fever, which I'm not fucking looking forward to that. But yeah, no.
Watch yourself.
Yeah, I don't know. Just try to keep variety. We're going from Stanley Kubrick to Eli Roth. It's the perfect.
Yeah, I guess you got to balance it out there a little bit.
Yeah, I guess so. But yeah, no, man, I had a great time. Always have a great time shooting the breeze with you. Thank you for having me on. It was a lot of fun as always.
Yeah, man, you're welcome on anytime. Always love having you on. But yeah, I appreciate everybody in the chat. Chat's been popping tonight. Had quite a few people in watching tonight. So glad to see you guys next week. I think I have an idea of what I'm going to do as usual, but I'm not sure. It could change between here and then. But like I said, in a couple of weeks, June 1st, I'll have Lawrence DeVincent on. Romero historian, the tour guide, Living Dead weekend for the Monroeville Mall. Guy can't wait to talk to and just kind of get into every little bit of Romero and wherever the conversation goes off into that's where we're going to go. But we're going to get you guys hyped up and ready for Living Dead weekend this year. It's Creep Year, Living Dead weekend in Monroeville Mall, June 7th through the 9th. So I'll be there this year. I know Synth's going to be there. I wish you were going to be there again this year, Grande. That'd have been cool, but maybe some other time.
Yeah, maybe next year for sure. Because definitely, I want to hang out and watch some movies with you now. You got to do this.
You're
man.
just dying. You're dying to watch Bride of Chucky and
Dude,
Next Generation.
Yeah, maybe we'll do a Saturday night off episode on my channel where we watch Bride of Chucky.
Hey, I'm down. I love Bride of Chucky. That's another one. That's another one. My 3-year-old picked up off the shelf today and was wanting to watch was Child's Play 3, and I was
Hell
like,
yeah.
I don't know if you need to watch. That's because that's one that's like not. It's not House by the Cemetery level, but it's like to a 3-year-old to see a toy killing things. It's like I don't know.
Yeah, that I would not. I would wait for a killer doll movie. That would be one of the last ones I showed to a kid.
That one fucked me up when I was a kid, and I like I said, I was used to seeing like Hellraiser and shit, but man, seeing Chucky was like traumatizing for me as a child. But all right, man, I appreciate you hanging out tonight. It's been fun. Appreciate everybody in the chat. I'll see you guys next week, and until then, as always, stay scared. Good night, everybody.